Hello. Can you hear me? Oh, we're streaming already.
Yes, I could hear you, Liz.
Excellent. Oh, hello, Etta.
Hi.
How are you? Good to see you, Danielle.
Hi, Liz.
Hi. That sounds like Paola.
Yes, let me know, please, as soon as you see anyone that you would like me to put as a panelist if I haven't already done so. And if anyone needs share screen ability, so I can help you with that.
Great. I need share screen ability. I take it I have that.
For you right now. So you already have it, and I made you my co-host.
Fantastic.
You never know, internet or whatever.
Okay. All right. I'm looking here. We got Shiloh. Shiloh is going to be presenting when we get to that
Bring
part.
her over now.
Well, when we get to that part, to that part of the agenda, I can unmute her so she can present, right? Does she need
She
to
has
be
a
a co-host?
question already, I think, because she has her hand raised, but she's in the attendee side, so I don't know if you want me to swing her over just so she can speak.
Okay, Shiloh.
Hi, I just had a quick question to see if I could share my screen during the presentation.
Yeah, okay, so you want to go ahead and make
Yes,
Shiloh
I'll
a
take care of it. Yeah,
panelist,
yeah. There it goes. And
and
then
she'll be able to share screen.
I will do that also. So now she has both.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
I'm not
You're
sure why this is going live already on Facebook, given that we haven't called it to order yet, but whatever. Okay. Why can't I see anybody? Does everybody have their audio, their video off? Okay, much better. Hello, Shiloh. Wait, I saw Etta. Now you see her, now you know. Hey there. People keep popping in and out. It's super disorienting. All right. Let me
I
just
mean,
find out.
I'm pretty sure your panelists and your guests would like to see each other, maybe when
Yeah.
they start speaking and stuff. I
Yeah,
know
I
no
would.
one wants to see me, so.
Everybody wants to see you. All right, let me just find out where my committee member is who's taking minutes, because we can't really start without him. Yeah, I have to say Zoom really has ushered in a new era of punctuality. Okay, could my committee members please, could everybody who is a panelist, please turn their video on? Because as disorienting as Zoom is, it's even more disorienting when I feel like I'm the only person here.
You are not
hello.
alone. You are not.
Inspector McCants, welcome. Thank you so much for making time for us. You're on mute, sir.
All right, not a problem. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, just going to give it another couple of minutes. Wait for our minute taker to come on. We've got Naima Silver. Welcome to our newest public member. I'm just looking for our other. All right. right. Unfortunately, we don't yet have quorum, so I can't call us to order yet. Hello, Jennifer. Hello, Sally. Ah, Sally is wearing her CB12 hat.
Sally, is your name Sarah or is it Sally?
You're on mute.
I was, my given name is Sarah, but I was never called Sarah. I was always called Sally from the minute I arrived many years ago. So I guess I'm Sarah, but most people know me as Sally.
Sally, are you wearing 2 pairs of glasses?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
No worries.
I didn't know if you had changed your name and if you were now going by a different name. That's why I wanted to ask.
Nope. It's sort of confusing, but I know if someone calls and asks for Sarah, it's something official. So
I can't believe I just missed the history of Sally versus Sarah. I've always wondered that, and I just got that.
Well, I mean, Sally is a pretty common nickname for Sarah in the same way that Betty or Bitsy are pretty common nicknames for Elizabeth.
yeah.
She said
Although-
that
Do not
Sarah-
try that.
Sarah was her given name. Sarah was her given name, but she's gone by Sally. Everybody knows her as Sally, and she
And I
knows.
had, okay, so Nobles, I'm going to admit it to you. Sarah's a really grown-up name, I think. So I don't know why they never called me that. It's like
It's
what,
biblical.
you give me like a lime green skirt and a pink shirt and call me Sally. That's just not acceptable. So
Okay. All right, so we've got Danielle, we've got Etta, we've got Nobles, we've got Francisco, we've got Daryl, we've got Sally.
We have Inspector McCants.
Yes, I know, we do. I already welcomed him and thanked him for coming, but he doesn't count for a quorum because he's
Oh, sorry.
not a member of the committee.
Who
We have Naima. We have a quorum. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, Nobles, for taking minutes. If everybody could go ahead and mute themselves so that we don't have background noise. I see we've got a bunch of attendees on the public side. So I would like to call this meeting to order. Does everybody have the agenda or do I need to share screen?
If you could share screen it, I didn't receive it, but not to mean I didn't get it. I just haven't seen it.
Okay,
Likewise, Liz, I did not receive an agenda.
okay. So I'm gonna share screen briefly, but it's disorienting because then you can't really see the other attendees. So I'll do a share screen so that we can see the agenda.
Cool. Yeah, just like a limited time would be cool. I'll write it down in
Right.
minutes.
Does that work can everybody see that?
Yep. Good to go.
Too small?
Nope. It's perfect for me.
Okay, so just a note, welcome everybody. I think our only new member is Naima Silver. She's a public member. Welcome. I'm very excited to have you on board. There was a little bit of confusion about the number of public members. So we also have Alexis Marnell as a public member who unfortunately is not able to be here this evening. And we had Jomari Smith, who was a public member, but she was also a public member of several other committees. And she's now cycled off of this committee as a public member and is just sticking with 2 other committees. I forget what they are, but you know, that's a heck of a commitment to be a public member of 2 committees, never mind 3. So I have to say, I really hope that she does sign up to be a board member in earnest in the next cycle.
Thank
So
you for welcoming me, Liz. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your interest and your service. So I just want to make a note about how I do the agenda. A lot of times you'll see things in the welcome and opening remarks, which are things that I put there so that I make sure to touch on them. They're not really discussion items. They're just things that I want to make sure that I report on. And the fact that they're on the agenda is really just an artifact of me being in my 50s. And this is the easiest way for me to remember to mention them. So it's not like I'm putting it on the agenda and then pulling it off the agenda and not talking about it. It's just a reminder for me to know, to remember what to report on. So to that end, for example, the possible update on the PT boat at the North Cove, if we have Jim Cataldi from the North Cove, he will give us a little 2-minute update on that. And if we don't, he won't. Also, with regard to the Inwood rezoning and EDC's letter of agreement and their list of commitments, that's an ongoing item that all of the committees should be delving into and really looking at to make sure that the city is holding to the commitments that they made in the various areas of housing, parks, cultural development, cultural affairs, education, traffic and transportation, what have you. Because we have a really full agenda, I'm actually going to bump that to next month, and I will recirculate to you that document from EDC, which was shared with us, with all the board members several months ago, so that we can just go through it. I will say that a number of the capital improvements that have been happening in Highbridge Park are related to commitments that the city made under that those points of agreement. But beyond that, I think I'm going to leave the discussion of the Inwood rezoning commitments to the November meeting because we just have so many other things going on. Welcome to Barbara Frazier, our committee member. I saw her flash on the screen. So I have a couple of other opening and welcoming remarks, but in consideration of Inspector McCance's time, I want to go to him so that he can offer a report on some of the staffing for PEP officers in our uptown parks. I want to thank you, Inspector McCance, for coming this evening. As I'm sure you've heard from Jennifer, we have a number of issues related to enforcement, noise, a lot of trash issues in the parks. I know trash is less of your issue, and we'll get to that after in the rest of my opening remarks. But if you could just give us the bird's eye view on enforcement, that would be great.
Absolutely. So
I'm sorry, Liz.
Yes.
Can you unshare your screen now?
Yes.
Thank you.
okay, so we're happy to report that we have a new sergeant coming in this week, Tia Sutton. So she will be part of the new team to help with Sergeant John Paul Rivera. So we currently have 2 sergeants, and we have 9 officers assigned to the Brooklyn North Parks.
Brooklyn North, Manhattan North?
I'm sorry, Manhattan North. I'm sorry. I've been in Brooklyn for about 3 weeks. So Manhattan North Parks, and they cover vast majority of the parks in the north. We had 2 tours for most of the summer up until about the second week in September. We were going from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Every day. We've now come back, and we're going to go to 10 o'clock to 8 p.m. Tour for the entire team. We've been concentrating a lot at Inwood Hill. and Fort Tryon, Highbridge Park. We're closing the Peninsula and Inwood over the weekends. And just, because of the pandemic and everything like that, most of our patrol was for social distancing and for just trying to get these crowds under control. And the guys, they've done a very good job, keeping a lot of the clusters from forming. Our biggest weapon is to try to get it before it starts, try to prevent any amplified sound from coming into the park. If we get it late, it's almost impossible to stop. But we've definitely needed help from the NYPD, and we've partnered with them, and hopefully, that will continue.
Okay, I got a question. When you say you now have two sergeants, that's including the new sergeant, or the new sergeant brings that to 3?
No, that's including the new sergeant. We normally try to keep it where we have at least 2 sergeants, and for most of the summer, due to COVID and other issues, we only have 1 for most of the summer. So we've gotten that back.
And just anticipating questions that people have related to questions that they've had in the past, the current staffing of 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., is it possible to have that start later and end later? So instead of 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., having it be more like, I don't know, noon to 10? Because I don't think there are a lot of PEP issues at 10 o'clock in the morning. They tend to be more in the afternoon and in the evening and at night.
Right. Well, a lot of the issues from what we understand, when it gets to around 10 o'clock is when the police probably should be taking over. For the most part, that's when you get a lot of the rowdier crowds and a lot of the more activity. I can definitely talk it over with the captain and discuss it with Jennifer and the commissioner, and we can definitely probably push it back. I would say to about 9 or maybe even 10. But there are a lot of issues earlier too that we can discuss maybe at a later date. But I think that the best scenario is to have those 2 tours, because we'll be able to get a lot of things that happen in the morning, and then a lot of things that happen in the evening. So when things pick back up, usually during the busier time, we try to go with those 2 tours.
Okay. I'm gonna ask, I see we've got 2 questions from panelists and 2 questions from non-panelists. Before I go to the panelists, I'm gonna ask the attendees if they could throw their questions into the chat, and then I will ask them for you. I just think that's going to streamline it. So I'm going to recognize my assistant chair, Daryl, followed by Francisco Lopez.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, everyone. I just had a question. I also serve on the Health and Environment Committee, and there was a bit of a discussion at our last meeting, as I know some of the other committee members are also on that, about COVID and possibly certain activities that happen in parks. That is one of the reasons we're seeing an uptick. I don't know if you've spoken to anyone at DOHMH, but one of the areas we identified as a possible place was Bennett Park, which is known for a lot of birthday parties and things like that. So I don't know if, I know enforcement doesn't always come over there, but I was wondering if you had intention to.
So Bennett Park is one of our patrol sites, one of our regular patrol sites for our team. And actually, most of where we patrol and what we patrol is by word of mouth, and what we hear from the public and from other park workers. And if you're seeing an uptick in anything that's happening, if you let us know, we'll give more dedicated patrols. But Bennett Park is one of the parks that we try to get to at least 4 or 5 times a week, which is probably one of our A sites. So we would definitely pay attention there, and that's one of the things that we're doing is trying to control those crowds, parties that are too large and things like that. So if we have to put a person there from early just to keep it from forming, that's something that we look into doing.
Thank you.
Francisco?
Hey, how you guys doing? Actually, you know what? I'm still formulating my question. Someone else can go, and I'll wait if that's
Okay, I'm gonna see Danielle and then Sally. I'll come back to Francisco, and then I'm gonna ask the questions from the public. Danielle?
Hi, thank you so much for joining us. So would you mind just clarifying, because it sounded like you were suggesting that parties are prohibited and congregating is prohibited. Would you mind just clarifying for everybody what?
So if you have an event or a gathering of more than 20, then you have to have a permit per parks rules. So a lot of those issues are what we're addressing around the city. Also, if it's sports like basketball games, it should just be skills and drills. So more of practice and drills running more so than live games. So those are the things that I'm talking about when I'm talking about crowds.
So parties are permissible, but if there are more than 20 individuals, then they're required to obtain a permit for the party?
Correct. As long as they don't have any other violations like amplified sound, things tied to the trees and things like that, yes.
And are they permitted, are they permitted everywhere and any parks land, or are there specific designated areas?
So it's not, we don't label it to have a party. It's not an event. You can gather and enjoy yourselves amongst family, any place that you would like. If it's more than 20 people, it's considered an event. And for an event, you would have to have a permit.
And to be clear, the Parks Department is not currently issuing permits.
Right, that's another reason I was asking about this.
Oh, wait, Jennifer, I'm
So just one clarification. So the restrictions have changed. If you're having an event, you can have up to, if you have more than 20 people, you need a permit. If you can have up to 50 people if you get a permit from the Parks Department, and you have to submit your safety plan in order to secure that permit and show how you're going to fulfill sort of COVID safety requirements.
So permits are being issued, it sounds like.
Permits are now being issued with a cap up to 50. So if you're going to have more than 20 and it's not just your family gathering, as the inspector says, it constitutes an event and you need to secure a special event permit.
and no amplified sound.
Are fees being waived?
No.
Okay.
But there's also, Jennifer, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's no permits are being issued to allow amplified sound.
That's correct, right, Inspector McCants?
Yes, that is correct.
With a few, so like the Parks Department worked with the New York Field Bandwagon, right? They come, they perform at Inwood at 218th Street. They do the little pop-up concerts. Go to Dykeman and Riverside, do the little 20-minute pop-up concert. They're allowed to have amplified sound. That's been arranged, in advance.
Just step by step.
Barbara, could you mute, please? Thank you.
No, that was, yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna move, I would like to move this along. So Sally? Sally, you got on mute.
Before I ask my questions, can you just clarify for me what Manhattan North is in terms of street boundaries?
125th Street North.
Okay, so you're dealing with everything from Morningside Park up.
Actually, we don't deal with Morningside and Marcus Garvey, but north of those, yes.
Okay, So my questions are these, in terms of the suggestion to be out there, like you said, you're out there from 10 o'clock to whatever. A lot of the problems with the parties and the setups is, the parties is they're setting up early in the day. They're putting up tents, they're putting up speakers and that kind of stuff. So I wonder if the people that are there early in the day can be doing things like stopping people from putting up the tents if they don't have permits, stop them from doing the amplified sound and that kind of stuff. Because some of the setups, especially in Inwood Hill Park, they're pretty outrageous.
Yeah, so that's the goal, to have people there. Like in Inwood, we had guys over the weekends early to stop the amplified sound from coming in, to stop any large gatherings from happening. That's really where we get our success. Once it's already done, we rely on our maintenance and operations and anyone from the public who can tell us, hey, somebody's wheeling in speakers at this location, and we try to go to that location as soon as possible. We try to coordinate with the NYPD so that we can make ourselves even more efficient. Maybe they can go to one location, we can go to another. That's really the strategy when it comes to those amplified parties.
Great. And also, how many summons do you issue for the different things? And I assume you haven't been issuing summons for social distancing, no mask wearing, but that now is a possibility?
So, just for the record, Parks Enforcement is more of ambassadors to the park. So even on a normal basis, summonses and arrests are sort of a last resort. What we've done, we've given out thousands of masks over this period. All of our officers are equipped with at least 100 masks before they go out on their patrol, and we're trying to educate the public, equip them with masks, and hope for compliance in that way. So as far as social distancing, I don't think that we've given out any summonses to that effect, but we have been successful giving out the masks and having people comply.
Okay, and also summonses.
Sally, we have many people with many questions, so that's going to have to be it. Francisco?
Hey, how you guys doing? Happy Tuesday. Thank you for your I want to say your service, but that sounds like a military thing. But you guys are doing an awesome job at the parks. My thing is about COVID and masks and feet and fines. You guys work with the NYPD as far as that?
We work with the NYPD, yeah, on most levels, yes. Mm-hmm.
I just have a question because we had an issue earlier this year in April about the indiscrepancies of the fines and who's receiving them and who's not. There was a report that said that 90% of the fines being given were to people of color. And I just want to know, up here, where the majority is folks of color, and how are you guys are able to still do your job without going overboard on that aspect?
So one of the beautiful things about being in Parks Enforcement, probably why I've been here so long, is that we kind of take the low road. Our job, because we don't have any weapons, we don't have firearms, so we have to develop our skills and get involuntary compliance. So we really don't have the means to be abusive in that manner, because our skill set is to actually talk a person down, get them to comply, get them to understand that the things that we're asking them to do is not only good for them, but also good for the public at large and for the park. And usually, most people who come to the parks, they're coming to have a good time. So, we can sort of play that angle to get people to do the things that we need them to do. But for the most part, and this is even pre-pandemic, most of our arrests are for failing to comply and disorderly conduct. So that's usually people who will not comply, even if we gave them the entire world on a platter, they probably still wouldn't comply. So our method is to take the low road, humble ourselves and try to get people to comply for their own good and for the good of the public.
I really appreciate that. And I wish that more institutions will take that lead as well. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm going to recognize Naima, and then I'm going to move to the attendees.
Thank you, Liz. So I guess I would like to start by saying that discernment is really important in how we approach these things. Sally just mentioned earlier about, she asked a question that if folks set up early in the morning, like at Inwood Park, can folks volunteer to stop others from setting up tents? And of course, stop them from setting up amplifiers of sound, right? So I think that's where discernment comes in, because first and foremost, how can, I would just like to, not just to Sally, but whoever is thinking in this way, that it's important to exercise discernment, because the approach of automatically going to stop someone from setting up a tent when first and foremost, you don't know if they are going over the 20% limit. Second of all, you don't know if they are going to use amplified sound, is making an assumption just from the very beginning. And it could lead to, it could lead to escalations that are unnecessary. And, in the current times that we're living in, it could even be perceived as, what's known socially as Karen behavior. And so I think it's important for us to be mindful of that. However, recognizing, again, discernment, that if folks are, violating the rules, then it's important to also let them know what the rules are, because I think a lot of people use the parks and they are unaware of these regulations and permit requirements. So there's also the assumption that people know what the rules are and they're breaking them on purpose. I think a lot of people, a lot of residents that live in our community do not know of these rules in the parks. So I think it's important to have discernment and also to check our assumptions.
I'm quite discerning.
I'm not
No,
saying.
Sally, no, we're not doing this. We are not doing this. We're moving on. Okay, so I just want to, we have a variety of perspectives and outlooks on this committee, and that's our strength. So I think it's perfectly fine for Sally and Naima to view things differently. And we don't need to go tit for tat on this. So we're not doing that. So I'm just going to read out some of what's happening in the chat here, so that Inspector McCants gets the full benefit of some of the issues that we hear meeting in and meeting out. I appreciate your coming here and giving us some information, but I think it's also really important for, not that you would think this, but I know that when Jennifer reports back to you like, hey, I was at a meeting and people were screaming about this and they were upset about that, I want you to get that she is not making this up, and that there are a lot of people who have a lot of really legitimate complaints and issues. And I think it's useful for you to hear that for yourself. So without further ado, we've got Cynthia Auburn, who said, I thought I heard you say that you closed the peninsula this summer. Did you mean to say that because it was most certainly not closed? It was a raucous crowd from 2 p.m. until early in the morning. I can attest to there being a fair amount of partying activity. And I know that you kind of stepped up your enforcement game with stopping things before they started, with some success on some days. But if you could address that a little bit, not so much in terms of whatever were some of the clear failures earlier in the summer, but the strategy going forward and for next summer to keep that from happening. And related to that, there are Cynthia later in the chat also said there were gatherings of a lot more than 20 in Inwood Hill Park during the entire summer with very little enforcement. Do you have plans for stepping up enforcement next summer if needed? She also added, we certainly had our fair share of amplified sound without permits in Inwood Hill Park. That's pretty well documented. she's the only person saying that in this chat at this time, but that's an observation that has been made by many people, and that I've personally observed as well. Do you anticipate continuing with this policy next summer? And if so, what plans do you have for enforcement? No one with an apartment facing Inwood Hill Park got any sleep all summer long. And there's an issue about signage, but I'll get to that second round of issues. If you could just sort of respond to that cluster of questions and concerns.
Absolutely. So the officers are there. I'm very familiar with the location as well. Prior to my current position, I was the Manhattan captain for numerous years. So I've dealt with this situation in particular. And we all know that even when we move the crowds out, once our guys leave, they're going to come back. So a lot of times we ask the NYPD to come in and patrol and spot check even after we're gone, because like I said, we were over at 11 p.m. But we would stay to clear the peninsula on the weekends at 10 o'clock. We would love to beef up the enforcement. We've done numerous things, like we have seasonals during the summertime. Instead of using them all at our pools, sometimes I would take some, put them inside of Inwood Hill, so that we can address the people who are bringing in, as Lay said earlier, amplified sound and putting up the tents. Those tents, actually, they're really illegal to put up. You're not supposed to erect any structure in the park. A lot of times we're giving out courtesies to people who have just young children and things like that, who just really need a little shade from that actual sunspot. But we try to make sure that people can have a good time without breaking the rules and without annoying people. We know that the baseball players, when they finish, they double park, triple park. A lot of times they play the music outside of their cars. We've given tickets to them as well. But I think that the more that we work with the NYPD, simply because of the numbers and the dynamics, the time of day that it is, we'll be more successful. And that's something that I would like to continue to strengthen, is our bond with NYPD for that section of the park.
Thank you. Okay, we've got one of my board colleagues says, I understand there might not be enough cars and officers to handle all the situations that happen in the parks all summer, and including just this weekend. I've seen PEP in vehicles drive by folks breaking rules and laws such as large parties, furniture, music, dogs off leash, etc. This past weekend at 9:40, people were riding in Fort Tryon doing stunts. When I called PEP, they had no cars uptown. So I think it's important to have coverage late in the evening. And why aren't PEP enforcing rules? I know that you answered part of that you partially answered that question in response to Francisco's question, but I hear Jim's frustration, and this is something that has been expressed to me at other times and in this committee by other people pretty frequently. We do sometimes see PEP officers, and we see NYPD as well, driving past what is obviously a violation of some kind, and there's no apparent response. So it's, for the casual observer, it does have the effect of making one think, like, why are these people here if they're not doing what I perceive to be their job? So help us to understand this.
Okay. If we get a little bit of disturbance, my dogs may start barking because mommy's coming home. But
no worries.
Hopefully it'll be okay. So
are they on a leash?
They are not on a leash, but they are in the yard, so they'll be okay. But when they come to the park, they're always on the leash. So we want to make sure that we're following the rules that we enforce. For that main question, why aren't the PEP officers addressing the the people that are breaking the rules, that's something that I'm very interested in, right? So if I have officers out there that are ignoring rules or don't want to engage, that's troubling to me. So that's something that I'm going to talk over with the captain and with supervision about, why is it that I'm getting reports that people are just not addressing situations. It could be, and I don't want to make excuses for anyone, but if these officers are going on a call to something a little more pressing, so they have to overlook certain things, I can understand that. But if it's a regular patrol and they're constantly back and forth, passing what they should be addressing, I have a problem with that. Especially a park like Inwood, they should be parking the car. They should be walking around. They should be addressing the public. Explaining to people not only what the rules are, but even why the rules are in place. And that's what helps the community understands and understand how to use the park in the right way.
Okay, thank you. Related to that, anonymous attendee is asking a burning question we all have on our minds. When we see scooters in the park after hours and during the day on paths, what is the quickest way to report enforcement without confrontation? Multiple instances in Fort Tryon Park, as members of the committee might know. It's not just Fort Tryon Park. You got people with scooters, with those weird wheelie things, with motorized scooters, all kinds of vehicles that don't belong where they are. And what are people supposed to do?
I would call 911. I would call 311. Normally what we do, we defer to the police department. They have a special way that they address this particular condition. As many of you, I don't know if you're familiar, but in the past, NYPD has chased these vehicles and it ended up in a fatality. So that's not something that they do. What we try to do, if it's happening in the park, we try to stay in the vicinity and hope that they stop. And when they stop, that's when we address them. We're not allowed to actually chase them because it creates more of a hazard than even what they're doing. So we would want to get NYPD involved and get them to come in and do the enforcement the way that the way that they do it. I don't know if, and that's something that I would definitely bring up to the chief of patrol. I know how they do it on the street, but I don't know if they actually have a plan or strategy of how to do it in the park. And that's something that I'll be willing to work with anybody to try to address. What we normally do is just try to make the area non-conducive to what it is that they're trying to do. We do that with bicycles. We do it with these motorized scooters. It's just that they're just so fast, and you don't want them to speed off, and someone is walking out into a path or something like that, and it just cause an accident. So that's something that has to be done, very delicately.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to clarify for the minutes that JB is Jennifer Bristol of the Fort Tryon Dog Owners Group, not Jim Berlin.
Thank
Two
you.
totally different people. Okay, and last but not least of questions, we've got from Mary Anderson. They're also a board member. There does not seem to be any monitoring of smoking in J. Hood Wright Park. I'm talking about marijuana, hookah, cigarettes, and cigars. I call the NCOs, the neighborhood coordination officers, if they are on duty, but I often cannot sit in any area of the park because I have asthma. Why am I and others prohibited from using a public park? And for people who are not aware, smoking is illegal in public parks. So you can smoke outside on the street, but you actually can't smoke in a park. So that is a great question. And what have you got for us, Inspector?
All right. So NYPD does not enforce that rule. So if you're calling the NCOs, they're not going to write a summons. They may tell someone that they shouldn't be smoking, but they're not going to issue a summons, and they're not required to actually enforce that rule. This is something that I can have officers have dedicated patrols to J Hood Wright, and we can go in on foot and sort of saturate the place with warnings. Well, not necessarily warnings, but if they're not compliant, we'll give out summonses. But we want the culture to change in the park. So now that I'm hearing that that's one of the issues, that's something that we'll be giving out to the sergeants to let them know, hey, we should be walking through J Hood Wright. This is happening on a regular basis, and hopefully we'll see the culture change.
Okay, I want to move along to the rest of the agenda, but in closing, I do just want to say, partly speaking personally and partly speaking on behalf of the committee and the community, and part of an ongoing sense that we've gotten over the last, I mean, for years, but particularly in the last several months. I think that a lot of people want to see, as you say, changes in culture. So, you know, that smoking isn't something that we should be doing in parks, that picking up after ourselves is something that we should be doing in parks, that having our dogs unleashed is something that we should be doing in parks. And ultimately, people can disagree on what's the best strategy for that. Is it better to have a lot of enforcement, fines, summonsing, or not? But I think ultimately what people are the most interested in is for those behaviors to end, so that we don't have to have a discussion about, do you issue a summons or do you not issue summonses, because people just stop doing those behaviors. So if part of what you're able to do, since you have a uniform and a badge, and people are going to listen to you in a way that they're not going to listen to me, Etta, Sally, Nobles, when we're in the park saying, hey man, don't smoke. Yeah, doing some concentrated enforcement and public education, I think would be really helpful.
Absolutely.
Liz,
Liz,
Notwithstanding,
I did have one.
I really, it's 7:15.
I know,
and
I
we have
had
a
my hand
huge
up and I
agenda
already
item.
messaged you.
I'll be
It's
quite
just a-
honest. 6:41 we started this segment,
Yeah,
and it's 7:12
so
right now. And we haven't even
so
gotten
I'm
other
actually,
updates.
with all due respect to the people who have other questions, I'm not taking them.
But
and
okay,
I'm
I'm just
going
gonna say, Jennifer, if you ever hear of any harassment of the officers, that's something you'll let us know. I know that's something I've never heard in the years I've been on the committee, which I'm very grateful for. But with the increased enforcement, if that's something you hear of, please let us know.
And just to clarify for everybody, by us, Daryl is speaking on behalf of his day job with the Commission on Human Rights.
No,
or
I'm
your-
speaking
or-
about this, not my
Oh,
day
just,
job.
okay,
Yeah, and not discrimination, harassment. It's different.
got it, okay. All right, moving the agenda. No,
Request that any
Sally, no.
in terms of personnel. that he-
Sally, moving the agenda. Okay, thank you. Inspector McCants, thank you very much. You are free to stay on the call if you'd like, or not. But I do encourage you to drop in monthly when you can. We meet on the second Tuesday. And if you've got particular enforcement stats or what have you to share with us, you can get them to me or to Jennifer to share with the public. And I really would like to be able to increase the kind of two-way communication with respect to enforcement. And I thank you for that.
Thank you for having me, and I will be a regular. And again, if you guys have anything, please bring it to me, and I'll do the same as well.
Excellent. Thank you so
Thanks,
much. I
Inspector.
appreciate it. Okay, moving along, before we get into brief programming updates from cultural organizations and Friends of Parks, with respect to opening remarks, I just want to let you know, I did speak briefly or have a brief email exchange with Luis Ramos about the Lenape street co-naming. He's working on collecting signatures. He doesn't have that package already yet. So when he does, I'm sure he will come back to us. But just know that that is still sort of in the works. With respect to sanitation and garbage conditions, I think Jennifer's probably going to touch on that briefly in her report, so I am not going to do that in my report. And I do want to say that yesterday I had the opportunity to spend some time walking around this beloved city of ours, not in Community Board 12. I was downtown and I had the opportunity to see two different sculptures. One, an incredible piece of Medusa holding the head of Perseus, which literally puts a classic sculpture, turns a classic sculpture on its head. And also to see the newly installed statue of St. Francis Cabrini down in Battery Park City. I mention this because art is still very much alive in this city. You can go and find it and be inspired by it. And even though we have to be socially distant, museums are open at lower capacity all throughout the city. And I encourage you to take yourselves there, both outside of this district and within this district. Dyckman House is going to be opening up next weekend. So I know that we've got Alexander Campos, who's probably going to be speaking in the next agenda item to give us an update on the Hispanic Society. So lots going on. Before I call our first person, I just want to read, Martin Collins was in the call earlier. He had another meeting he had to go to at 7 o'clock. He says, I invite everyone to meet a new Uptown artist or performer at 7:30 every Thursday through November 19th with NOMA. This week, Marjorie Elliott, Parlor Jazz at 7:30, Thursday, October 15th. He gave the Zoom link, which you can find if you go to NOMA's website, NOMAANYC.org. So with that, Alexander Campos, you want to give us a brief update on what's happening at
Hello,
the Hispanic
everyone.
Society?
Yep, I'm here. Yes. First of all, I want to say that we opened up our exhibition project, Treasures on the Terrace, which is free and open to the public Monday through Saturday from 11 to 5. There's QR codes, which you could use your phone and listen to the little narratives that we have in both in English and Spanish. We also have didactic panels, descriptions of the exhibition for each object that we're showing, or each illustration that we're showing, I should say. And that's open again. That's going to be open to December 6th, 7th or so. It's open again, free to the public, and it's just walk in. There's no reservations required. We have security guard there to make sure that we only allow a certain amount of people at a time. So please go visit if you haven't been there yet. Secondly, we're planning to, we're working on reopening the Soroya room later this year. Hopefully I'll have more news. It's been a little difficult because of the air conditioning requirements set by the state, and we're working on that to address that, as well as a temporary exhibition gallery in the East Building, which requires some landmarks approval. So we're working on those things to move forward and have those things, the one gallery at least open by the end of the year, and another one in the beginning of the new year. In addition to that, we are trying to work with offering tours virtually, and we have many programs. And in fact, this Wednesday, we have a lecture about music from our collection and so forth. So you can listen to that YouTube. It's free again. And then we're going to do a Cocina Hispana, Spanish kitchen conversation next Tuesday, a special conversation focusing on paella and rice and the collection and the Hispanic Society's cookbooks. And again, you can find that information on our website, or you could actually email if you want the information, campos@hispanicsociety.org, and I'll send you the links. Or you can sign up for our emailing list on our website and join us, and we'll send you the links automatically if you're on our MailChimp list. We also are trying to come up with new programs to outreach and working with schools and other community groups. And we're trying to tailor conversations, particular topics to relate to different institutions. And we've done some works with the Army Corps of Engineers, the Civil Rights Division of the Federal Department of Education, the Queens Library, university groups from Fordham, and so forth. So if you have, so we're trying to do these free conversations online or talks about our collection with particular groups. And so if you are interested in that, please email education@hispanicsociety.org. And of course, we are trying to partner with the schools, but as you know, that's, anybody knows, that's also an ongoing difficulty considering their situation and their precarious unknown, what they're doing now and then. But we are doing something with the Randolph High School, which is not in our area, but we're doing it with them. They're in Brooklyn. And we're doing something with PS 86 maps and drawings workshops there during this semester. So if you need, we're happy to do more. So if you're related to a local school, have a kid there, please talk to your instructor, because it's really about them allowing us to, provide a lesson weekly or once a month or whatever they need. But it's really about them and their schedule and the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you. Oops. Shh, quiet. I can't get my thing to shut up. Sorry. Next we've got, I'm just doing this, and can people who want to give presentations for their nonprofits and Friends of Parks groups raise their hands? Julia Attaway from the Cabrini Shrine.
Good evening. We are starting 2 new things. Starting tomorrow night, we're beginning a program. It's not really a program, it's something we're calling Making Space for Serenity. And we'll stay open until 7 o'clock. And it's starting at 6 o'clock. The shrine will be lit by candles. And there is no agenda, there are no words, there are no screens, but we will have a live musician here to provide some meditative music. Tomorrow night's program, starting at 6, we'll have Annette Aguilar on percussion and Steve Sandberg on piano. And then the following week, it will be Mark Cross doing improv jazz, quietly. So the idea is simply to give people a space. We, as a church, we have a lot of experience with social distancing and COVID protocols. And it's just a place and time to be quiet for anybody of any background to come in and relax a bit in some other 4 walls than the ones that they're in all the time. And the second thing is on November 1st, All Saints Day, we will begin an exhibit called What is a Relic? And we're talking about sacred relics. Obviously, St. Frances Cabrini, her relics are here. And a lot of people don't know what that is and what that means or why we do that. And so the exhibit is going through an exploration of the history of relics and their uses within faith. And that will be open to the public and free as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you for that service to the community. I look forward to attending on Wednesday evenings.
Sorry,
Obed,
I have a
Oh,
quick
yeah.
question for you, Julia. Is that like every Wednesday evening, or is that just for the next 2 for sure?
Every Wednesday evening is the goal. So if you also if you know musicians who are interested in playing for an hour, send them my way. I'd be glad to talk to people. And what we're doing is providing a sort of seed for a donation basket, and anything that goes in the basket goes to the musician. We're not looking to cover any costs.
Thank you. Next up, Obed Fulcar.
Good evening, everybody. So nice to see you.
Good
Happy
evening
Tuesday.
and happy birthday.
Yes, thank you. And happy birthday to you too.
Thank
Who was
you.
Libra? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 55 years young. All right. Yes, we're happy to report that Friends of Sherman Creek, we organized our second successful City of Water Day in your neighborhood on September 12th, exactly a month ago. And big shout out to Rene Cuencas, our wonderful Parks Department coordinator who made it happen. And also Danny Moon from the New York City Park Department nursery at Van Cortlandt Park. If you ever need plans for your parks and your groups, reach out to your local coordinator, and they're wonderful. They accommodate you, send you a list. We have over 12 volunteers and participants, and we were happy that we follow strict New York City Health Department and Parks Department COVID-19 requirements. Everybody kept, I don't like to use social distance, physical distance, yet we were socially close. Everybody kept apart, wore their masks, we were able to plant mulch and also do a general cleanup of our parks at 200 Waterfront, Sherman Creek Waterfront Parks at 203rd. And big shout out, we are the sponsors, the Harbor Estuary Program and New Jersey Waterfront Alliance, our partners from James Cataldi from the Manhattan Wetlands and Wildlife, and the Friends of the North Cove. And yeah, that is our report.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Oh, I see I've got Ian Caddick from Row, New York. Did I successfully unmute you?
Hi. Hi, sorry. Took me a second.
No worries. We can hear you. You want to give a report from Row, New York?
Yeah, sorry. Nothing new to report. I'm standing in today for Amanda Kraus because she couldn't make it today. But nothing new to report on the boathouse. When we have more, I'll bring that to you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Do we have other Friends of Parks groups? I saw Mike Fiddleson was on here earlier. Going once, going twice.
I think Sally had her hand up. Yep, there
Yep,
it is.
yeah. No, I know Sally has her hand up, but since she's a panelist, I just wanted to do a loop through the public members. Okay, Sally, what have you got from Friends of Inwood Hill Park and the Food Council?
And Sally, can you send this to me after?
Oh.
Nice.
Okay,
Thank you.
Friends of Inwood Hill Park, most exciting, which is why I have posters and stuff all over my house, is the River Sweep, the Hudson River Sweep, which typically is the first week of May, is now going to be this coming Saturday. We are doing our third at the Dykeman Pier, or whatever you refer to it as, the Dykeman Street Boat Basin boat launch. It's Saturday from 12 to 3. All are welcome. We hope you're there. It's a really fun event. We'll be kicking off our Beautified Broadway Street Tree Stewardship Initiative within the month. And that's basically to do what we do in the parks, but take it to the streets so that we can teach people how to maintain and care for street trees. I think Curtis Young is an expert right now, so we might have to recruit him in and apply a lot of what we learned in the citizen pruners, as well as with the super stewards of Inwood Hill Park, of Northern Manhattan Parks and the Forestry Division. We will also be announcing a Paint Inwood watercolor workshop, but that date hasn't been scheduled. And just a thank you to everyone for keeping our parks and streets clean. I also, and so that's Friends of Inwood Hill Park. I guess I have a minute left for the other one. When Food Council, we will be completing our IOB fundraising campaign, celebrating our 4th anniversary this Friday. So there's still time to give. We're 75% along the way to our goal. We want to thank the 80 people who have donated. If you've donated, if you've not yet donated, we would appreciate the contribution. If you have, maybe ask 3 of your friends if they could donate $4 to our fundraising campaign. $1 for each year we've been in operation. Also, we had our first planting day in the garden at the Riley Levin Children's Garden on the 4th of October. We planted radishes, kale, lettuce, peas, beets, and other fall crops. So that's about it.
Cool. Before I get to any questions, Paola, if you're here, can you promote Natalie and Domingo to panelists, please? Sorry. Okay, Daryl, you had a question? Oh, you gotta lower your hand.
That was old, sorry.
Got
Usually
it.
you put it down for me.
That's true. And I wanted to read, just make an announcement on behalf of Conectémonos. It's my park day at Juan Bosch Plaza in Highbridge Park. They are having an It's My Park Day on October 17th, which is Saturday. They're going to be doing cleanups every Saturday at that location for 6 weeks from October 17th to November 21st. I'm going to forward this email to you, Nobles, as part of their fall program. And that's a cleanup happening from 12:30 until, I'm sorry, 11:30 to 2:30 at Juan Bosch Plaza on Amsterdam and 190th Street. So I'll forward that to you, Nobles, for the minutes. And if anybody wants to get their hands dirty at that location over there, your participation would be welcome. And then I think Obed had a question for Row, New York. What is the status of the boathouse? I think there's no news update on that. And is there an upcoming meeting of the advisory board for the boathouse? So Ian, if you could just let us know, is there an upcoming meeting of the advisory board?
Not to my knowledge. I don't think so right now. I'll definitely check and I'll let you know, but I don't think so.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, do we have Natalie, are you in as a panelist? You want to make your announcement?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, my favorite committee of my favorite community board. This is Natalie from the Manhattan Borough President's Office, where I have the distinction to serve as this board's coordinator and liaison to the beautiful neighborhoods of Washington Heights and Inwood. I wanted to share, thank all of you for all the work that you're doing. And I will clearly be flipping coins to decide which park I'm gonna go clean on which Saturday. But both Rosa Yolanda and Sally, I will have you at some point. You will have me there, and I promise not to be as as princess-ish as you guys imagine, and I can pick up garbage with the best of them. So I'm very excited to announce that tomorrow evening, the Borough President's Office, in partnership with the Coalition of Theaters of Color and the Harlem Arts Alliance and the Greater Harlem Chamber, those two organizations, as you recall, teamed up with the Borough President's Office for a set of really great Harlem Uptown arts advocacy calls at the beginning of the shutdown and the pandemic. So tomorrow, this town hall will be kind of a combination, the rights of artists, but also the rights of voters. We talk about different sectors counting and different sectors voting. Well, culture votes and culture counts. So for census and for elections, these are important people to take into consideration. The impact of things going on right now on the creative community is astounding. The number of creative professionals who are out of work, organizations that are in danger of permanently closing. We rely on folks like this, like the ones who serve on this committee, to try to keep shining a light on this and help us find solutions to save a lot of our uptown arts organizations that are incredible, absolutely incredible. So when I was in the attendee group, I had access to the Q&A. I pasted the link there for Gesundheit. I pasted the link there for the event so that you can register. It's tomorrow at 6 p.m. And in all likelihood, we will have a streamed version of it for those who can't attend at that time. And I will be in the virtual room for questions when appropriate. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Steve, I see your hand is raised. Are you reporting something?
You're not on mute, Steve. I think you can talk. You're good. I don't think you're on mute. Oh, wow. Now something else is
Steve,
wrong.
start talking. See what happens.
No, he is.
Earth calling Steve. Earth calling Steve.
Yeah, looks like either his
Oh,
mic's
weird.
not working. No.
Your mic doesn't seem to be working. Can you just throw, oh no, you can't, we can't get you in the chat because you're a panelist.
You want to call somebody?
Okay.
You can shoot me an email with your update. I'll make sure it's in minutes.
While Steve is figuring out his connectivity issues, I want to just announce from Obed, who says, I forgot to mention that on September 20th, we hosted a walking tour of the Sherman Creek waterfront to 20 students from Columbia University School of Urban Planning from 207th Street, the North Cove. Jim Cataldi addressed them over there, to Swindler's Cove at 200th Street and Dykeman. I suspect that it came as news and possibly even a shock to these urban planning students that area exists and is what it is. So thank you very much, Obed, for doing that. And to anybody who hasn't been over to those areas, do yourselves a favor, go over to those areas. They're kind of amazing. All right, I'm guessing, Steve, did you get a message to Jennifer? You want to send me an email? What's going on? Can't hear you.
Liz,
Yes.
can I do an art announcement or a
Yes.
stewardship announcement?
Yes, sure.
So wearing my Parks Department hat, I don't know if everybody was at the meeting last month, but as part of a citywide effort, the Parks Department and partners are doing a temporary public art installation related to Juneteenth. In June of this year, Parks Commissioner Silver created Juneteenth Grove at Cadman Plaza in Brooklyn. And in recognition of some of the horrible injustices and loss of life, planted 19 flowering trees, and then painted 19 benches in the colors of the Pan-African flag. And Sights of Town, we're connected to that that initiative and that installation through Juneteenth benches that have been painted at Fort Tryon Park, at Broadway and Arden, at Inwood Hill Park, Speak Street, at Seaman and Isham, one at Dykeman Farmhouse, one Roger Morris Park, and one to come at Highbridge Park. It's sort of associated with that, the Parks Department is revisiting the names of several of its parks citywide. And on November 2nd, we'll be announcing some renames, new names for some of its park holdings. And November 2nd is, I guess, National Day of Solidarity. But some people in the community have sent in requests that certain sites be renamed, and that's all being handled by this committee at the Parks Department. So I wanted to let people know that that was coming up, and obviously there's going to be an announcement on November 2nd. But in the meantime,
Thank you.
Liz, I have a question for Jennifer.
If it's about renaming parks,
Yeah.
we're actually going to get to that later in the agenda. So I'd like to hold that. That's its own agenda item later in the meeting.
Oh, it's just about the benches.
Okay.
So I did notice the bench on Seaman and Isham. It seemed like it was painted, but then was unpainted. But so I had a question about that. But also I was wondering if it's possible to install some information because I didn't actually know what that if somebody just sort of went rogue and decided to paint it or if it was connected to something. So I think it'd be really dope or awesome if you could install some information.
Agreed. I've requested it. You know, some people thought it was rogue and so, you know, took it upon themselves to cover over it. So I've requested interpretive signage. Usually when the Parks Department does a temporary public art installation, we have a little bit of explanatory signage. So I have requested that
Thank you.
for those locations so that its significance can be conveyed and people understand that it's intentional and that it's part of a citywide effort and statement.
And I think furthermore, if it's an art installation by Parks Department, it should be considered vandalism if it is destroyed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. In the chat, Ian has Ian has said Road to New York does not have an upcoming advisory meeting for the boathouse. We will be sure to share any upcoming meetings and updates for the project as we have them. Thank you. And Megan asked about parks renaming. That's an agenda item, so we'll get to that later. I'm trying to move this along. Yes, you've got more announcements, Jen?
Yeah, I just wanted, yesterday was Fort Tryon Park's 85th birthday. 85 years Fort Tryon Park is a public park. If you haven't already, you can go on the Fort Tryon Park Trust website. There's a memory book of people's memories throughout the various ages of the park. There's a historical timeline. There's videos on the creation of the park, but it's pretty phenomenal history. And Julia from the Shrine has brought to my attention that Margaret Corbin Circle was previously named, you know, for Mother Cabrini. And then when the road to the park, Cabrini was named. Another great woman was recognized, Margaret Corbin, first woman in the military, take over her husband's cannon and receive a military pension. But a lot of fun history in recognition of
I'm on a
the
meeting.
birthday. I wanted to
No problem.
thank everybody who came out to the Fort Tryon Park Trust Volunteer Day this past weekend, planting along the Broadway berm and clearing invasives and mulching the cryptum area there. It looks amazing, and planting new trees. Thank you. There's a volunteer opportunity this Sunday at 10 a.m. at Margaret Corbin Circle if you want to join in. I want to give a huge shout out to ISS National. They came and they painted the Cabrini Woods fence. We're mobilizing volunteers everywhere we can to improve our parks, given budget cuts. You can look up on the parks website for upcoming volunteer opportunities. And since this committee and people who attend this meeting in general are frequently asking about trees, on October 24th, the Parks Department Stewardship Division is hosting a tree planting in Inwood Hill Park. That's at 9 a.m. And the meeting place is Seaman and Isham. And then on November 1st, we're gonna be handing out bags again in the late afternoon, encouraging people to clean up at Inwood. And that's also 218th and Indian Road. One other announcement, since some people will drop off, we're having a public scoping meeting for Bennett Park. The central lawn is through the borough president and the council member has received $1.1 million in funding to have an artificial lawn. The level of use and disuse there's so much demand on that center area, and despite lawn restorations, fencing it in, closing it off, within a few months it gets completely worn down. So this is an opportunity for us to make it always look good and to sustain the level of wear and tear that it gets. So that meeting is scheduled for October 29th at 6:30 via Zoom. And we'll be asking the community board to send out the Zoom information to everyone, but.
Excellent.
Was that your report? We kind of slipped into that, past couple other.
Announcements.
Those are
That's announcements.
Those are announcements of events. We're gonna get into a very brief report later in the agenda as a setup to the capital and expense. And we have two other items to get to before then, so I really need to move this along. I'm gonna announce for Bob Burnett that Planning NYC is hosting a public virtual workshop on the comprehensive waterfront plan for Manhattan and Upper Manhattan, plus the East Side, on Tuesday, October 27th, discussing the plan's draft framework, including goals and strategies for the plan. Thank you for that information, Bob. And with that, I am going to move to item number 4 on the agenda, a brief presentation from the Morris Jumel Mansion of an art installation. And for that, is Paola, are you here?
Yes, ma'am, or you wouldn't have a meeting. Who do you need me to bring on?
I need you to bring on Andrea Arroyo, please.
All righty.
And while you're at it, if you could also promote Domingo to a panelist as well. He's going to be the presenter for item number 5. So without further ado, we have Shiloh Holly from the Morris Jumel Mansion.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am going to share my screen and first start off with some brief programming updates from Morris Jumel Mansion. Does this look, oh, I don't know, wrong button, sorry. There we go. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Perfect. So brief programming updates. This weekend is Open House New York. We are unveiling our virtual 360-degree behind-the-scenes tour where you can see all 4 stories of the Morris Jumel Mansion. That's available at openhousenewyork.com or maybe .org. Not quite sure. You'll have to Google it. We are resuming our paranormal historical investigations, which have been adapted to meet safety protocols. That's various dates in October and November. Next week, we are participating with fellow Historic House Trust sites in a virtual after-school program where we'll be making sun catchers with our bilingual educator, Jessica Colon. Also next week, we're hosting our virtual Parla Chat, which is our monthly public program. And keeping with the spooky theme, we are discussing historic house museums and the paranormal with Historic Richmond Town and Merchants House. So you'll get a 2-borough look at that. And then also building on our family day from this past weekend, which was where we made ofrendas for Day of the Dead. We have a virtual community altar project, which you can find out more about at morrisjumel.org/altar, where families who attended that event can upload their altars, or if you have an ofrenda at home, you're able to submit that as well. So it's an online exhibition. More details and information can be found at morrisjumel.org. And without further ado, I want to move, let's see, no, it's not advancing for some reason. Let's see. Okay, here we go. I want to move to a proposal for a public art installation, which is currently still in review by the Parks Department. This has come as a response and reflection piece to the COVID-19 epidemic. The piece is called Covida, Homage to the Victims of the Pandemic by local neighborhood artist Andrea Arroyo. And this is to be installed on the gates of Roger Morris Park, which you see a photograph here. I want to quickly go through a few of other pieces from Andrea's work, who is very much specialized in creating outdoor installations in public gardens, on fences, and even public installations. What we are proposing is that Andrea, in conjunction with working with the mansion, will create this piece called Covida, victims of the pandemic. It's made out of mixed media, mostly vinyl mesh, repurposed mesh, vinyl, ribbon, flowers, papel picado. 6 feet in height, which is the height of the fence at Roger Morris Park, approximately 48 inches in width, which spans a few different panels of the fence and the front gates, and roughly half a foot wide. The duration would be November 2nd through the end of the year. November 2nd is Day of the Dead. And just a brief note about this project, that it stands as an artistic tribute to the victims of the COVID-19 pandemic, honoring the lives of people from the local community and around the world who have died of COVID-19. And one very special component of this project is ribbons, which will feature the names of the pandemic victims will be installed as a part of the feature. And those will be submitted by the public for inclusion in this living memorial. I have 2 working drawings, which, let's see, it's not advancing again. Okay, here's the first working drawing that we have. I'm going to share a little bit more logistical details before I turn it over to Andrea, who can speak a little bit more about her process and the meaning behind the work. But this is meant to be a low impact installation secured to the fence. You'll see black and white winged figures, a cityscape down below, flower garland along the fence, papel picado, and ribbons. And all elements of the piece are weather resistant. They're all individual components. They're lightweight, flexible. They're going to be installed with no impact materials such as zip ties, monofilament, garden wire, so on and so forth. And its intent is to have minimal maintenance, which may be some light cleaning, some minor repairs, and the inclusion of additional ribbons if we find that the public names are growing, that will be an ongoing maintenance. A little bit more about that process. The ribbons are going to feature names of pandemic victims that are submitted by the public through a bilingual submission process for inclusion. We hope to do some type of programming, which will be a combination of virtual and on-site related to the project, possibly in our virtual parlor chat format or family day, a name gathering event, and also on our website having some various programmatic elements to it. We are partnering with NOMA, who is going to be a presenting sponsor for the event and mostly just assist with the promotion of the inclusion of the names and the artwork itself.
We've just got like 3.5 minutes.
Yeah,
so want to bring Andrea in?
Yeah, let's bring Andrea in, and there's a little bit of delay in my screen, but I can toggle back between the 2 working drawings if needed.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing us to present this. Just very briefly, Shiloh already covered most of the details. I just want to speak briefly about the overarching ideas behind the project. So the main goal is to honor everyone who has been impacted by the pandemic. Our community, of course, we all know has been devastated by COVID, and yet we have not been able to come together to mourn. So the project presents a safe and I think meaningful opportunity to engage with each other. The piece itself honors people who had passed and also celebrates the many essential workers in our community that are still on the front lines, as we all know. So that is part of the reason that I titled it Co-Vida, like co-life, because that was very important to me. The inspiration for the piece comes from sources from around the world, and basically with the piece I'm honoring our ancestors, my own indigenous ancestors from Mexico City, and I also acknowledge our common land ancestors, the people of the Lenape Nation, whose traditional land we all stand on today. So the idea is to honor people who have passed, but also to celebrate life and to celebrate the fact that we are here and that we actually have to live with COVID for the foreseeable future. The public participation component can be done in a very safe way, either on site or online. And I think it can be a really wonderful event that, you know, brings reflection and a way to memorialize our community. So I think that's it for me. But if you have any questions, please let us know.
It's beautiful, and that name is fantastic. It's just
Thank you.
really brilliant. I just want to remind people that this is not your first public art installation, and it's not your first public art installation in that place. So you have a long history of enriching our parks and in working as well with the Morris Jamel Mansion in a couple of different formats. So Shiloh, do you need anything from us? Can we just reflect that this was discussed? I don't think we need a resolution. I hope we don't need a resolution. I see Jennifer shaking her head.
Thumbs up.
Okay, so if everybody on the committee can turn your video on so that I can scan all your faces, and I want to see some on a scale of let's see some enthusiasm. Do we like this idea? Do we approve of this idea? Do we have okay, excellent. And folks in the attendees, if people who are attending can just, if you can hit the raise your hand feature if you like this idea. If you don't like this idea, don't hit, oh my God, everybody's raising their hands. What's the Springsteen song? Raise your hand. So, okay, looks like people approve of this.
I can't put my camera on, but I love it.
Okay. Oh, Aisha, excellent. You're here. Thank you. I didn't realize you were here, so I will not mark you as absent. I will mark you as present. Fantastic. So I think that's your answer. And I think everything we need to know about people's approval of this idea is in the beaming face of the artist, Andrea Arroyo. Thank you for everything that you do and that you are, and for enriching and beautifying this community in so many incredibly meaningful ways. So
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
fantastic. I would love to spend more time on this, but let's move the agenda, and thank you, thank you, thank you. So yeah, Jennifer, if you can report that back to Arts and Antiquities, that would be great. And we've got Noemi Rodriguez saying, great presentation. Yes, indeed, it sure was. Okay, so without further ado, at 7:57, we've got Domingo.
Yeah, I'm here, Liz.
Okay, so you want to give us a little idea on what it is you have in mind?
So basically,
what
you
we're
know
doing?
how I do youth programming a lot in Raoul Wallenberg. But we identified a park behind George Washington High School, right next to Michael Busick, where we wanted to make sure that you know, making sure the community's good and fixing up that park.
That's actually part of Highbridge Park, Domingo.
I know it is.
Okay. You just mean a portion of Highbridge Park.
Yeah, if we're gonna get into semantics.
Yeah, that's what he said, a portion of Highbridge Park where the Busick, near the Busick Fields. He actually
Yeah.
said that pretty clearly at the beginning of his.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah, so basically, we've been running a camp, and as we understand, there's certain parks that, like for instance, at Michael at the I just mentioned the name.
Fort George.
No, at the
Busick?
park. No, not Michael Busick. The other park.
Van Bosch?
No, right
I
next.
think you said Raoul Wallenberg or something.
Wallenberg?
Correct. At Raoul Wallenberg. The problem is that there's a lot of youth engaging in activities. So we feel like we've done our job there when it comes to making sure youth are engaging in sports and not in any other sort of illicit activities. But we did want a space where we could do youth programming for middle school age youth, which is difficult at that park since that park caters more to older youth.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a presentation there that I would like to share. You should have my name there twice because I'm currently in an event. I'm currently having an event right now, so I had to.
So let me know, Domingo, if you have sharing abilities, because I gave one of the first names the ability to do
Right,
so.
I'm seeing Domingo, I'm seeing one of you as co-host, so. you
And
should-
one as regular, yeah.
Yeah, so the one that's regular, you should give them the ability to share.
Okay, hold on. All right, there you go. You have both now.
Okay. So 1 second. It says, all right. So as we understand, like what we always try to do via Uplift is always make sure that we have adequate spaces. What do we mean by that? Even in Raoul Wallenberg, we made sure to provide when we use that court, we made sure we provided new basketball rims and engage youth at a higher level by bringing in professional athletes and different type of individuals to be able to further enhance programming within the park, right? So next slide. Raul, like the key talking point today is we're in the process of forming a Friends of the Bend. That's what we're calling it in Highbridge, which is just to make sure that the park is proper, the basketball court is properly kept, but at the same time being able to provide programming during the summer months.
Is that Friends of the Ben or Friends of the Bend?
It's the Bend. We'll call it, I think it's Bend something that the park is called. I forgot the actual name, but yeah, next slide. So what do we do, right? So working efficiently in challenging times. We've understood that during COVID, programming has had shifted. We saw an increase, and I always say that there's a direct correlation between crime and a lack of programming in underserved communities, right? So what we did in prior years, prior to COVID, our youth program actually worked with over 600 community members, ranging from the ages of 4 all the way up to our adults and the professional athletes that we work with, right? During COVID, due to COVID, we did limit the amount of youth we worked with, but we had to still provide programming because we didn't have the luxury of not doing anything while we saw all type, like the atrocities and crimes happening in our community. So we did something and we scaled down to at least 10% of what we are accustomed to working with, which was only 60 kids ages 7 to 18 years old. Next slide.
What?
So why adopt a park? Well, no. So what do we do? So this is basically when it comes to our basketball component, this is what we do. We do indoor camps all year round. Indoor camps where we bring in professional athletes to work with kids from our community to be able to provide them skills and drills and also mentorship. Outdoor games, so they work there the entire year to be able to make it to the I would say the Madison Square Garden, which is summer basketball, and where we're able to engage in competitive basketball games. And then we also have partnership with athletes. So we have very different athletes throughout the entire year that just come to not only talk to the kids about the experience as professionals, but also provide them with life skills, mentorship, and also work with them by just being able to connect them to schools. They also help fund our scholarship programs, where we send youth from Washington Heights, Inwood, and Dykeman to private schools. Next slide. So why adopt a park? Because I always feel that it's our
Hold on a
responsibility.
second. Somebody's got a lot of background noise happening. Everybody should be muted except for Domingo.
All right, thank you, Liz. So I adopt a park because I always say that it's our responsibility to contribute to the improvement in our community. Sometimes we get too caught up in waiting for city agencies, but if we have the ability to fundraise and support in one way or another, like I always feel like we should do that. Next. And this is just a 1 minute and a half video. So just play the video so you could see what the program and what it looks like.
Actually, Domingo, if it's at all possible to,
I'll send
I
it.
need you
I'll
to
send
get
it
to
you
the
so you
point
can share it.
because we still have a huge agenda and it's already 5
Okay,
after
cool.
8.
So that was the point. We want to be able to see how this project could be put into the capital projects, which I know you'll be discussing today, where we want to basically see if Parks is able to do a resurfacing of the park and add lights to it. There's no residential areas around it, so that would fall into the it would be allowed to have lights in that park.
I see. So this is not, so this is a presentation in anticipation of rolling this into the capital funding
Correct.
list. Got it. I misunderstood that. I thought that what you were looking to
We
do
want to adopt
was-
it too. We already bought the rims. Steve referred me to some people for the backboard, so we're gonna purchase that. But we need Parks to do the capital project on it.
Got it. Okay. All right, that is good to know. So then I will, everybody kind of hold on to that in your heads. And we will circle back to that presently when we get to the capital and expense priority ranking, which we will do not next. Next, we've got Jennifer up with quick updates on capital projects. And then,
And also, is it possible for Jennifer to provide some input as to how we could, like once we form the Friends of the Bend, how we go about, like, because we already have a 501c3. How do we go about like looking for grants to make improvements to the park?
okay. Jennifer, you want to?
Sure.
Feel that?
Happy to help with that, Domingo. That would be great. And we can hook you up with the technical resources of partnerships for parks.
Thank you.
Capacity grants and other things to help your group and identify resources.
Oh, and thank you to one of our participants for doing the slides. I appreciate you, Eva.
Nice work.
Yeah, nicely done.
Thanks.
So do you want me to jump into the capital project updates or no?
Yes, please.
Okay. So just some capital project updates. We opened up the $4.8 million soccer field at Highbridge the other week. It was so fun. It was not a full ribbon cutting, just so everyone knows. We're restricted due to COVID. So it's more of a photo op, but it was a wonderful day to see, Commissioner Castro had long had a vision for making that a soccer asset. And we started the process, but really it required a full capital overhaul. So because of the 30 million that we're investing in Highbridge Park, we were able to transform it. It's huge. It's this great artificial turf soccer field. Check it out, 175th and Amsterdam Avenue. And it's really phenomenal. And groups like Uptown Soccer are getting to use it for their free public programming. Audubon Playground, we've done a soft opening. That was the Community Parks Initiative site, $14 million. This committee was helpful in advocating for it, as well as for the demolition of the temporary building that had been there for, I guess, 30 years. About 75% of the playground is now open and available. There's a basketball court, there's a little pickup artificial turf soccer field, and about 60% of the playground are done. And we were able to get that open in time for the mayor's outdoor learning initiative and for the 2 schools that make use of that site during the school day. Later on in the year, we'll be completing the playground. And then in the months following, now that the moratorium on construction obviously is over, the comfort station or the bathroom is going to be advancing. But we're excited to see the transformation there. It's really beautiful. Go and check out the plantings, go and check out the open sight lines. The community has a much bigger and better park, and we're really excited about that. The water tower project is advancing now. Obviously, there were delays due to the construction moratorium. We're now projecting that $5 million stabilization and restoration will be done June of 2021. Adventure Playground, Liz and several other people on this call were at the groundbreaking for that. That's also in Highbridge Park at 165th. That project the playground is expected to be complete by Thanksgiving time, early December. And we're excited for that. It was long overdue. It hadn't had capital funding in a long time. So it's a complete transformation, and the geological formations that you're now able to see there are pretty phenomenal. And the phase 1 Laurel Hill Terrace staircase, the pathway work and the lighting is primarily done. The staircase itself has had to have some redesign work to accommodate the electrical. That staircase was built during the WPA era, and believe it or not, it was all gravity. It's unbelievable. It was almost entirely hollow. So we've had to do some design changes, somewhat related to the structure, more related to the electrical to accommodate all the pathway lighting that's going in. But it's pretty interesting what you see when you start doing construction on something that's about what WPA was the 30s, so 85 years old. Lastly,
not as old as Fort Tryon Park.
Not as old as Fort Tryon. We are still, the city's Office of Management and Budget still has certain projects that hadn't had their construction contract registered with the controller yet. They're still in a holding pattern. That's the Inwood Nature Center. That's the $4 million project at Ann Loftus. Monsignor Kett will be going into procurement, but then it may also hit that sort of hold. The Dykeman Water, the $22 million for the Dykeman Waterfront, Highbridge Park, the Quisqueya Comfort Station. So we're in a holding pattern, and we expect, or we hope that we're going to get more information following the issuance of the mayor's November plan, his budget plan.
Can you just send us that list? Because that was a lot of words that I didn't quite get.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I always lean on Jennifer to send us this list because I can't.
I'm trying to respect all your time, and I know we're behind, so I did that rapid fire. Sorry.
It's all good. No, it's all good.
No, it's fine. We just need it in writing when you can.
Does that also impact the baseball fields in Inwood Hill Park? Or since that's in design, that continues on?
So the design is still ongoing. We're making progress on the baseball fields. The 3 baseball fields, for those of you who don't know, at Seaman and Isham, 3 of them are getting a complete capital overhaul. 1 of them is getting lighting. And design is also proceeding on the Dykeman fields, the artificial turf at Dykeman Field soccer field.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Liz, could I speak for a moment?
Very briefly.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand what Jennifer said about with Domingo's request about the field of refurbishing that because it's part of Highbridge. Can his request be incorporated in the 30 million budget?
No, because that already went through all the design and the public review,
Okay.
Public Design Commission. So it would have to be an
Okay.
entirely new capital project.
Yeah, this is
Okay,
a
so
new
then we should-
project, and that's why it's being presented the way it was by
Right,
Domingo, and
was.
that's why it's gonna be added as a new project to be prioritized in the next agenda item, if only we could get to it. Yep. Daryl.
Oh, I was waving at the baby, but yeah, I did have a question. Is there any news on the concession for New Leaf?
No news on the concession for New Leaf. I don't, this committee submitted their input, the notification, the project was reinitiated with the law department, but I don't think there's anything to report on. I can ask Revenue for an update for next month's meeting.
Yeah, Revenue's been really great about reaching out to me and to Jennifer when there are updates, and I in turn share that information. So this is, as my mother used to say, no news is no news, unfortunately. But yeah, if you could give them a poke and see if there's anything happening, because sometimes being asked kind of gooses them into action. Okay. Any other items, pressing questions? Any other cute babies?
I do have one. Not, well, cute baby, but she's acting up out there, so she's not coming in. But I do have a question for Jen really quickly. So in the mayor's budget cut, and like, can you just give us like a summary of maybe where some of those cuts might be going?
So the Parks Department had its budget cut by $84 million. One key area that was impacted, we had a staffing reduction of 1,700 workers, and that was primarily like our seasonal staff. So those are the people who would come in during our high peak season, like May, June, July, August, September. They would come in and they would, because we have higher park use, we have much more trash generation, a lot more events and activities, and that would be how we would bolster our level of care during high peak time. We did not receive that this spring and summer. So the staff are stretched very thin. And so you might have seen some delays sometimes in garbage pickup or delays in, lawn cutting. So it definitely affected us. But I have to say, our staff, frontline workers continue to work and
They're
deliver.
amazing.
Yeah. Just for the
Thank
sake
you.
of, so that people, thank you, that's a very good question, and thank you for that answer. So that people can wrap their heads around what $84 million budget cut means, can you tell me what your budget is?
Oh gosh, off the top of my head, what the expense budget usually is?
Or
Okay.
roughly, or what
Here-
percentage that represents?
Right, so ordinarily, we receive less than 1% of the city's budget. Right, so we oversee land that's roughly the equivalent of the county of the Bronx, and yet we receive less than 1% of the city's budget.
Something is making noise. Okay, if you could, Steve, if you could let us know, we cannot hear you. If you could text somebody, if you happen to know the Parks Department's annual budget, or roughly what percentage $84 million represents, just so that we can have an idea there. And while we're waiting on that, Daryl.
Yes.
Do you know why she called you out?
I have no idea. Is it because she's on the phone?
Because you're not on the agenda.
No, I'm not. Do we need to move this meeting forward?
Yes, Jennifer.
Jennifer,
Go
you
for
had a
it.
question?
Looks like it's around 534 million in 2019.
Yeah, so that was Steve telling me that $84 million represents 14%.
Right.
14%. That's substantial. So I'm really glad I asked that question, and thank you very much, Steve, for that answer. So
volunteering is key, and picking up after yourself is key.
Right.
So shout out to Liz Ritter.
Yo, for
Going out
real.
into Dykeman Fields after our park staff has left for 3 hours to clean up after people who decided not to throw their trash away. Liz is our hero.
Liz really likes picking up garbage. So if anybody wants to join me, most Sunday evenings, I go either to Dykeman Ball Fields, Fort Tryon Park, or Inwood Hill Park. I got trash pickers, I got gloves, I got hand sanitizer, I got bags. Feel free to join me.
And Jennifer, to Liz's credit and also to Park's credit, like the one time I did not go was this Sunday. It was the only time I didn't go. There was actually a lot of trash out. Like,
So maybe you're the good luck charm.
Right.
I guess so.
You got to be out in the parks at night, Nobles.
Steve, can you just clarify, was that a 14% budget cut?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the $84 million budget cut that the Parks Department got represents 14% of its expense budget. That cut was not to the capital budget, that cut was to the expense budget.
I know, the total number of the expense budget now is what?
Well, you know, somebody is welcome to do that math. If you divide 84 million by 0.14, that's going to give you the total, then subtract the 84 million. And I'm happy to walk people through that later. But now I would like to move to the
14% cut, is that was, or what it represents?
So once again, it was $84 million cut, which is 14%.
Nearly $600 million.
Okay, thank you.
Great. All right. Daryl, you still get to ask your question. Your hand is raised.
Oh, that was an old question again.
Yeah,
Okay,
we can move it.
Got it. Okie dokie. And we've got one, Tiffany has a question. She is not able to talk because she's using an older version of Zoom. All right, Tiffany, I'm going to promote you to a panelist because that's just the easiest way to get this. What's your question?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I wondered why I couldn't participate. I did not know I was using an older version. Strange. Okay, so Mike, I have a couple of questions. So I definitely appreciate everything that's being said tonight. I appreciate your efforts. I appreciate Jennifer's efforts as always. I'm just wondering about this south end of High Bridge and the garbage pickup and the parties that are happening. And at the end of the day, we are very interested in figuring out like how we can be of more assistance from our end in terms of like the parties that are happening down here on a fairly regular basis now, more than ever. When I was away for 30 days, I came back and it seems like almost every single weekend there are birthday parties and everything.
I'm actually, sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to jump in. We spent about 45 minutes at the beginning of this meeting. We had.
I was in the meeting. I was in the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, so we did have Inspector McCann say
Yeah.
a number of those issues. And so what I would like is if you could, rather than go through all of that again, if you can offline communicate to Jennifer the specific times, parts of the parks and whatever, so that she can.
There's a lot of
get that
garbage
to
pickup
Inspector
issues
McCann.
down here now that have happened since the budget cuts. And like, I'm also curious, one big thing I want to know about from this meeting is, are there cameras on the High Bridge, the walking bridge?
There are not.
Okay.
There are 911 call boxes.
Only on each end. So if something happens in the middle, it's a little crazy. I had a little bit of a like, because I run on that bridge, so I have a little bit of a like strange experience recently, and I was wondering like what are the protocols, because it's definitely not monitored by any parks person.
Well, you can call 911, obviously.
Obviously.
And then, Parks Enforcement Patrol does have that as part of their overall routes.
How often do they monitor that?
I can ask.
Because I think it's sort of like in the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, from what I've noticed.
Right. I can ask because they are based at the top of the stairs of the bridge.
They're not.
No, that's where their offices are.
Yeah, but there's no one down there.
Up top, at the top, that's where their offices are. So they're there at the beginning of the day and the end of the day and in between shifts.
Not sure how safe that makes us at this moment.
We can offline this, I think.
Sure.
Sorry to
I would
interrupt. We
really
just got to keep it
appreciate if
moving.
you guys could have this conversation
Yeah.
offline.
Sure, I would love to have that.
Great. Y'all have each other's contact information, yes?
You do indeed.
Okay, fantastic.
I have your contact, Jennifer.
Yep.
Great. All right, so I would like to move to, it's 8:24, to the budget priorities. For this, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen.
How would you like me to take minutes during this piece, Liz?
So I think we do not actually have to have, the minutes have to show what our budget priorities are. It doesn't have to be a verbatim transcript of how we got there. So I think that, you know, you're welcome to take some notes if that's helpful, but usually in years past, what we've had for this item is, after a lengthy discussion, these were the budget priorities.
Yeah,
And
the
that's
Post-it.
pretty much, yeah.
Big Post-its.
So I gotta say, I am really sad about the fact that we are in a Zoom and we can't do the Post-it exercise, which I think was really the best way to do the priorities. So I spent a very long time trying to figure out how we might replicate that and came up with nothing. So I think that the best I'm going to be able to do, I can't, here we go, share screen. Hold on a second.
Yeah, we just did this in professional development and we stumbled upon a good solution.
Okay, so what I think is going to make the most sense is if we're going to rely pretty heavily on the chat, and I'm going to ask for Tiffany, I'm going to, don't take it personally, I'm going to demote you.
I won't.
To a, I'm going to have to stop sharing screen so that I can exercise these controls. Somebody's got some weird feedback. Change role to attendee. And
Liz, this is Shiloh. I think I need to be demoted as well.
yes. Looking for you. Okay. Oh. I can't actually do that because for some reason you're a co-host. So Paola, if you could make Shiloh just an attendee, not a co-host. Okay. And if you could do the same with Domingo as well.
Okay.
And then I think everybody else.
All right.
Great. All right.
You should be good to go now.
Fantastic. So now we're back to sharing screen. And can everybody see that?
Yep, you're good.
All right. So what I did is I took last year's capital and expense priorities. I am going to remove shoreline preservation and bulkhead repairs because that's already been done. And I'm actually going to remove the Native American, African American burial grounds at 10th Avenue and West 212th Street to develop a memorial with directional and interpretive signage and a facility to support community events. The reason I'm doing that is it's only a capital project if it includes building a new facility. And I think in light of all of the other projects that we have and the level of spending, the likelihood of that actually getting funded is pretty remote. But if it goes to an expense project where it's just about the signage and it's not a capital project, I think we've got a better chance of it being funded. So with your permission, because it was a little bit of a back and forth, is this a capital project? Is this an expense project? When we first had it on a couple of years ago, OMB said this isn't a capital project, it should be an expense project. But then we changed the scope of it to add a new facility. That would then become a capital project. But I think if we go back to the original intent of the project as first conceived and put it into expense rather than capital, I think we're more likely to get somewhere on that. So I'm going to
Point of clarification on the difference between capitals and expense, just for folks that might be new to the board.
So a capital project is something that is, Jennifer, it's 30,000 or 50,000? You're muted.
In some cases, it used to be 35,000, now it's 50, I think.
Right, so that's for participatory budgeting, but which is a different threshold, which is why I'm asking Jennifer.
I'm pretty sure it's 50.
Right, I think the threshold for capital for participatory budgeting is 35 anyway. But so $50,000 for a capital project in this process and a minimum useful life of a year, 2 years?
Depending on what it is, it's 5 or 10.
Okay, so this is not really capitally eligible. So I'm going to delete it. And I did already add it into the expense, which we're going to get to later. So to this, I also moved the renovate, repair Inwood Hill Park Nature Center, which had been our number 3 priority last year. I moved that down into the continuing support because that is funded and it doesn't need to have a ranked number. That just goes for no, Sally, that just goes for continuing support. So to that list of items from last year, I then added a number of items based on what's happened in this committee in the last year and what we discussed at the last meeting. That would be the basketball at West 186th Street lot. That's what we've been hearing about from the folks at Conectémonos. Cameras in parks, which I'm actually going to delete because even though it's in parks, it's really more of a public safety capital item. So I don't want people to think that we're not responsive, but that doesn't come out of this committee. The lighthouse link, which is the missing piece along the greenway north of the lighthouse and south of that 1.25 mile long path from Dykeman Street. The Inwood Hill Park ball fields number 3 and 5. As we just heard, we already have a capital project in the works for ball fields 1, 2, and 4. But as we heard at the various public meetings around the ball fields, we still, ball fields 3 and 5 need a little love. The Inwood Hill Park Nature Center to add a learning landscape, that would be improvements outside of the nature center itself for beautification and also for education. Community gardening, making land available for community gardening. There's no space specified in particular, but as you know from the resolution we passed a couple of months ago, strong support for increasing community gardening facilities in the neighborhood. What else do we have? And then we have
Liz, you skipped the inspiration point.
Yes, Fort Washington Park Inspiration Point portico, repairing the steps and the portico itself. And then we've got basketball at the Fort George Hill Bend in Highbridge Park, which is the presentation that we just heard from Domingo. Okay. Am I missing anything?
Liz, can you just lift it up a little bit so that we can see the, awesome.
Yeah. And I'm gonna take these numbers out. And sorry to keep moving this around. I just want to number these so that we know how many we're looking at. So I would say what may make the most sense, I'm open, is to stick with the numbering that we had for last year's projects, and then to take the new projects and insert them in. Are they more or less important than what we've already got in our priorities? Does that make sense to people?
It's clear for me.
Does that feel like a good idea? I'm open if people have better ideas.
I have a
Would it be easier for all of us to
That's
just
fine with me.
tabulate on our own and then we could tabulate all of them at the end? I don't know. If
Yes, that's also, that's another possibility. I mean, another possibility is if people want to take, I didn't realize I had a blank spot. So there's actually 19 so no, there's 18 projects, because anything that's continuing support, we don't have to give a number. So we have 18 projects that we would need to rank 1 through 18. And what we certainly could do is people can prioritize them, and I can just, everybody can take those items and prioritize them and send them to me, and I'll just, which
I
is
have
pretty
an
much how we
idea.
do it as a board, but
I have an idea.
yes.
Would you, if you can put a link in here, is this a Google sheet? This is probably a
It's not a
hardcore.
Google sheet. It's
Okay.
not a Google Doc.
If you send me this
It's-
Excel sheet, I could quickly make a Google form, put the link into the chat, and then people can rank them, and then it crowdsources everything and gives you the top ranks.
Yes, I like
you
it.
email-
Does
can you
everybody
email this to me?
understand what he just said?
I mean, if people are on their phone, it might be a bit tough.
Except one thing. What about the chat?
Oh, Jesus. You guys are
Like we don't
so
have the chat
shitty.
feature. Oh, geez.
I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay. Right, we don't have the chat feature.
Right, as panelists, we actually can't respond to things in the chat. That's something, as panelists, we can talk to each other. Only attendees can access the chat. Like, we can reply to things that attendees put in the chat, but we cannot ourselves initiate.
Can
Right.
everyone act? Can we do it via?
I mean, all it would take would be someone that's not someone that is in the chat to just post it in the questions, and then everyone can get it.
Liz, I have a question as a new member.
Yes.
And this is just so I can get some context. Is there data on, for example, are there certain parks that are continuously in the capital budget? And like, is it possible to see that, like which parks or areas get funding?
So I don't have that information off the top of my head. It's publicly available. I can tell you that this committee every year has more projects than any other committee. And there are a couple of reasons for that. So let me thank you, and I'm sorry. As a new member, you're operating at a deficit of knowledge. So let me explain a little bit about this process.
And if you can also explain in terms of the numbers ranking. So for example, I remember hearing about like 600, I think it was Domingo mentioned they serve 600 people. So do we also look at, in terms of ranking, do we look at how many folks will be served?
Sure. So let me give you a little background on what this process is and how this process works. This is not binding, but when the city council goes to make the budget, part of how they inform their priorities is through community input. And a big part of the community input is the budget priority, the expense and capital budget priority ranking that each community board goes through. So that's sort of how boards talk to their council members and to the mayor. We also fill out something called the Statement of District Needs, which is more broad in terms of programmatic scope. This is very detailed in terms of specific projects. The Statement of District Needs is sort of more goals oriented and more outcome oriented. These are specific projects and specific programs. This committee has, as I said, more projects than any other committee. Traffic and Transportation Committee typically has a fair number in terms of road infrastructure, tunnel and bridge infrastructure, that kind of thing. All of the committees have some, but we tend to have a lot. The other reason why we tend to have so many is that unlike literally every other agency in the city, the Parks Department does not have its own capital budget. Every other agency has a capital budget. The Parks Department does not have a capital budget. So the way the Parks Department gets capital projects through is partly through this process. The local council members, the local electeds, allocate funds for projects. A project can't be registered and can't go forward until it's fully funded. So if there's some project that's going to be, you know, $2.8 million for design and construction and contingencies, and the council members together and the borough president have come up with $2.4 million, and they're $400,000 short, that project cannot go forward, can't go out to bid, it can't go into design, it can't go any place until it's fully funded. And of course, the longer it takes to get fully funded, typically the more expensive it gets. You know, 2 years go by to get the funding, and all of a sudden it's another $500,000. So it's at that point that, you know, an elected official who has already given some funds towards it might say, this is really important to me, I'm going to give some more money. Or some other elected official, you know, the mayor's office might come in and say, all right, I'll throw the extra $400,000. Or the Fort Tryon Park Trust may say, you know, yes, we really believe that High Bridge needs to have this particular improvement, so we are going to take money from that and, you know, put it towards whatever. So
Liz, sorry to interrupt you. I
Yes.
just have one quick question.
Mhm.
As I'm looking at the spreadsheet, the ones that are continuing service, right? CS,
continuing support.
continuing support. I see that renovate, repair Inwood Hill Park Nature Center is ranked number 3. Would that just be a CS? And then that means the numbers have to be just
Okay,
updated?
so the way it works is anything that is continuing support, we keep as continuing support until it's completed. At some point, something goes from being a ranked project because it hasn't been started yet to shovel in the ground. This is what happened here. So last year it was ranked number 3. Now it's going forward and we want to give it our continuing support. So when we're a year from now, it's going to be CS for 2020 and it'll still be CS for 2021. Totally good question. This is not an intuitive process. So I'm going to let Jennifer go before Danielle because Jennifer's probably going to add some information that I forgot. Yes, ma'am.
So Naima, is that how you pronounce it?
Naima.
Naima. So 2 things. The Parks Department, sort of separate and apart from the regular capital allocations from the elected official, Our planning division does advance projects as part of the Parks Commissioner's framework for an equitable future. You can find out about that on the Parks Department's website. So that's what drove the Community Parks Initiative. We looked at sites that hadn't received any capital funding for 20 years, and those many times are in low-income neighborhoods. So like Audubon Playground was one that received $14 million for, a complete overhaul. Maybe it's 11. Steve will correct me. Similarly, the Anchor Parks Initiative, the $30 million for Highbridge, that was to complete a park that served a regional population. So the Parks Department does sort of look at who's going to be served, where are their needs, where maybe has there been disinvestment or there needs to be reinvestment. And then those sort of special projects do get funded by the mayor. So that 30 million and the, for Highbridge Anchor Parks was the only park in the entire borough that got that funding. And the Community Parks Initiative site was part of the citywide, I guess 52 different locations were picked for it. But there's more information on that and the whole capital project process at www.nyc.gov/parks.
Yeah.
Or feel free to email me.
And one other thing that I did want to say is there are a couple of things that are perpetual items. So one of the things that has been a capital item for, really all of the 25 years that I've been coming to community board meetings is park path paving. Because there are
60 miles.
60 miles of park paths. So even if you're spending, several $1 million every year, by the time you do all 60 miles, it's time to do them again because there's just so much. So there are certain things that are just perpetual items. And yes, one of the responsibilities that this committee has is to be mindful of all of the testimony that we hear month in and month out. And even though at one particular meeting, we may have a bunch of people from one park, and we know that's important, we have the obligation to remember that 6 months ago or 2 years ago, there was a lot of focus on a particular set of needed improvements in some other parks. So I think the community relies on this committee and all of the committees to have some sense of institutional memory as to what happens month in and month out, and not only respond to what's in front of us right now. So we have to do both. So Danielle, you had a question.
Yes, thanks. So I think on the other committees the other committee that I serve on and have served on, we've typically reviewed all items prior to ranking them.
You mean in terms of having a sense of like, what is this project?
Yeah, because I also have only been on for like 6 months and I'm not super familiar with all of these other items.
Okay. Do you want me to go through the rest of the ones that I didn't, that were numbered?
Is that?
No, that's fine. That's totally fine. So I think I gave
super briefly, if you don't.
Yeah, I think I gave enough information about the new ones that we just added. So
I don't know what the Lighthouse link is.
Okay, so the Lighthouse link, if you're at Dyckman Street and you walk down that path, that beautiful newly redone path that goes, not the one that hugs the Henry Hudson Parkway, but the one that hugs the river, that starts like right outside of the opening of the Hudson, the former La Marina, and you walk south or you bike south. It goes for like 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles, and then it ends in a little loop.
That passes the rowing.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you go down, that's a beautiful path. Everybody loves it. It's really nice. But it ends in a loop and then you come back. You cannot keep going south. Meanwhile, if you were a bird and you could go south, or if you went down to, the Little Red Lighthouse.
Yeah, I went that path ended because I used to bike that all the time.
Right, so the Little Red Lighthouse in Fort Washington Park, there's a path and it goes up, and it goes way up that very steep hill. And then you can get to the footbridge that crosses 181st Street. But that's about as far north as you can go. You can go north along the, hugging along the parkway, but you can't go north in the park. So you can go north about as far as the lighthouse, and you can go south from Dykeman Street 1.25 miles. We'd really like, and we have for years, really wanted to connect those two things.
Oh,
So that there's a pedestrian path, there's a path that's safe for pedestrians and rollerblades and bicycles and baby carriages and what have you, so that that very cute baby that we saw in Francisco's box, so that they can enjoy going down by the river and strolling. That would be a fantastic improvement. Very expensive. All sorts of changes in elevation, environmental issues. So that's been a dream, and in sort of every long-term plan for decades.
Can we add benches to that? Because I've seen a lot of people there sort of sitting on rocks and things, and I think it'd be great if there was.
So it's a path, and what exactly it looks like would be dealt with in the design phase. I would love to see benches, but that's a level of specificity that we don't need to get into. We can just call it, a path. And what exactly it looks like and what amenities it has is something that would be discussed once that is funded and once it's in design. So yes, but no. If that makes sense. So that's what that project is. And then starting from the numbered projects from last year, repair badly degraded staircases and retaining walls in Isham Park. Isham Park is that small, beautiful, highly sloped park that is just west of Broadway, between Broadway and Seaman Avenue, between 214th Street, 215th Street, and Isham Street. So a part of Isham Park used to be part of Inwood Hill Park, but that's the park that was given by the Ishams for use as a park. And it's got a couple of retaining walls, one of which is falling apart in a really dangerous way. So there have been a couple of projects in Isham Park, including the addition of water service to Bruce's Garden and to the southwest corner, where there's now beautiful plantings. But the retaining wall along that walkthrough at Isham Street, or just north of Isham Street, there's a retaining wall that is falling apart. So we had a lot of advocacy from the Friends of Isham Park over the years, and that's what that project is. Second, we've got the Hispanic Society renovations, roof, interior, terrace, and ADA compliance.
Sorry, Liz, really quickly, sorry to interrupt. Do you mind sending me this sheet? I've already made the Google Doc from just typing everything you've got here.
Oh.
But I hope I'm not missing a tab is the thing. I just want to make sure I have the sheet.
You are. Do you need this for the minutes or for putting it into the chat later?
Into the Google Doc for the chat, yes.
Okay.
I can only see the number 25. If that's the it though.
That's the end.
Oh, then we're good. The form's ready to go for ranking.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, and you don't need to do items 21, items 19 through 20, 21, 20, through 23, because they're just going to get CS. We only need to rank
Copy.
these,
You got it.
right?
Yep.
Liz, you can, I don't want to take up like a ton of time. If you want to go
All
faster.
right, well, I'll just go through them very briefly. The Hispanic Society, I think we've heard sort of a lot pretty consistently every month from the folks at the Hispanic Society about their really pressing capital needs for for fixing their roof, their interior, their terrace, and for making it ADA compliant. The Raoul Wallenberg playground, that's not how we spell playground, and basketball court reconstruction. We've heard a lot from Domingo over the years about how important that is. And I gotta say, you know, that playground really needs some love. It's gotten some short-term fixes, but there are a lot of ways in which it's fallen apart, and it really needs a thorough overhaul.
Was that that wasn't his presentation though? Was his
That
presentation?
is correct. His presentation was for basketball at the Fort George Hill, in Highbridge Park at the Fort George Hill Bend. This is also Highbridge Park, the Raoul Wallenberg Playground, which is on Amsterdam Avenue between 189th Street, across the street from the school.
Do you want me to add that to this list?
I don't think I understand your question.
Sure. Domingo's project. You said it's
So Domingo's
expenses.
project
That's
is
expenses.
item number, Domingo's project is this project here. See, basketball at the FGH Fort George Hill Bend.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet.
Busy night in the Ritter household, huh?
Oh, shit, that was Steve. Hello?
While she's talking, Nobles, I just want to give you some kudos and shout out.
George
This is my first
Playground.
meeting with you guys, but you're doing such a great job at keeping things moving, and you know, so I just want to.
I appreciate it, Naima.
Okay, it's the Fort
I
George.
appreciate it.
I'll second that one. Noble's resolution, you rock.
I appreciate it, guys. We're going to be sharing this secretariat role, though, so I
Okay,
have a
so
plan
it's
for
the-
that.
It's the basketball at the Fort George Playground.
I used acronyms for the parks, by the way.
Okay, that's fine. So next we've got renovate the eastern perimeter playground in Fort Tryon's Parks and Loftus Playground and add a sensory playground. That is, you will recall when we had the renovation of the Ann Loftus Playground and the renovation of the Monsignor Kett Playground, we wanted to have a sensory playground. There is a renovation of the Ann Loftus Playground, the central area, and the area that is at the Riverside Drive perimeter. But there's the section of the playground on the Broadway perimeter, which is a substantial chunk of the playground, which was more recently renovated than the rest of the playground, and as a result is not part of the current renovation, $4-point-something million renovation that is currently in the works. So that area along the Broadway perimeter could be redone in a different way to incorporate some of these particular needs. It's uniquely suited to those needs for a sensory playground because it's away from traffic. It's away from the overhead train. So that's what that project is about. Repair and
Liz, let me also add that there is no sensory playground north of about 121st Street. I believe might even be 89th Street. And that over 400 people signed a petition supporting that renovation.
Yeah, thank you. Sally?
Yeah, I just had a question on the things from last year. Can you comment at all on how they were received by OMB? That would affect how I would rate them. If they were dismissed out of hand, then I'm not gonna.
Can we finish going through these?
So I'd like to finish going through these, and sure, I can address that. The Linden Terrace, that's the area in Fort Tryon Park that goes up those steps and has a grand overlook, and it has been completely overtaken and destroyed by a lot of tree roots. The stairs are okay, but a lot of the pathways are uneven, and it definitely needs some work there. The next item is Inwood Hill, High Bridge, and Fort Tryon Parks reconstruct 60+ miles of park pathways and paving. That is that perpetual item that I mentioned previously. It's just always going to be in there because we always need funding for it. Next is High Bridge Rec Center weatherization to fix the windows and retain heating and cooling. We had a presentation about some repairs to the High Bridge Rec Center. But if it doesn't have some weatherization improvements, you've got a lot of heating and air conditioning loss. Next item is more family picnic and barbecue areas throughout our district's parks to meet increasing community demand. As you know, different people have different thoughts on barbecuing. Many people are opposed to it, but many people are in favor of it. So figuring out places where we can have barbecuing that is safe, that is away from overhanging trees, that is not so proximate to residential buildings, to provide an area to do that safely and appropriately kind of takes the pressure off of areas where people are spontaneously having barbecues in places that are, you know, dangerous or really noisy for neighbors.
Part of the discussion from a few months ago, or that was an item from last year, you're saying?
That's an item from last year. That's been an item for quite some time. There have been some people who would like to see barbecuing on that strip over by PS5, just south of PS5, to the east of the northern terminus of the Harlem River Drive. There are a couple of pockets where barbecuing could possibly be placed in a way that is not a fire hazard and not a major quality of life impingement. So I think finding those areas would be, personally, I think that would be a community benefit. Not everybody agrees. You look like you
Skip the J. Hood Wright Park. Sorry, just above that.
Yes, I did. J. Hood Wright Park overlook and viewing platform and ADA accessibility. So in the northwest corner of J. Hood Wright Park, there is an elevated viewing platform with breathtaking views of the Hudson River, the George Washington Bridge. It's a lovely amenity. There's a public art installation, sculpture in there, and it's a nice area to be, and it's not accessible. So it's a problem when you have public amenities that are not fully accessible to the public. So the Parks Department now, when it's making new projects, they are accessible. But there remains the open question of retrofitting existing facilities which may not be accessible. So that's what that project is. Renovate the Payson Playground to make it and the Park House accessible. I think that speaks for itself. For those of you who do not know, the Payson Playground is the playground on Dyckman Street and Payson Avenue. It's part of Inwood Hill Park. So if you're on Dyckman Street and you are walking away from Broadway towards the river, towards the former La Marina, and you see that there's a playground there. And in that playground, there is a park house. That's what the Rangers are currently using since the Nature Center is not operational. And that, you know, again, like so many of these old and fading buildings, it needs some love, it needs some renovations, and it is not fully accessible. Asbestos abatement and restoration of Building D in Fort Tryon Park for security presence. For those of you who do not know, when you are walking along Broadway northbound and you have Fort Tryon Park to your left, as you pass Sherman Avenue and you look to your left, there's sort of tucked into the grove of trees, what is essentially north of the gazebo and the dog run. There is one of the old buildings from back when this was an estate. I mean, I guess it was like, I don't know, the gardener's house or something like that. Say again?
Public restroom.
Oh, it's a public restroom. Imagine that. So that building, if it were renovated, if it were made accessible, if it had the asbestos that's in there removed, that could be used for any number of things, including increased security for an area of the park that's, can be a little sketchy. So I think that would be a useful improvement to Fort Tryon Park, to bring staffing and visibility, and to store things related to public programming in the parks. Does that summarize it, Jennifer?
I had
Move the park enforcement out of their trailers. They would be a sub headquarters for park enforcement, and they're currently, the city has to rent trailers for them at Highbridge Park. So it would reuse a building and give them a more permanent home, and then we don't have the expense of the ongoing trailer rentals.
I see. It would also put parks enforcement more in the center of the district rather than in the southern part of the district. So having them, yeah, I think that sort of speaks for itself. You look like you've got a question there, Francisco.
Oh, I had one.
Yes, quickly. I just wanted to, maybe my eyes aren't comprehending properly or I'm not seeing it. But is bathroom renovation or bathroom availability at all part of what we're doing right now? Secondly, has anybody brought up having viewing areas for any parks that face the river overlooking Jersey, or parks that look at the Harlem River?
Yes. So I can. So the J. Hood Wright overlook and viewing platform, that already exists. And that, I mean, what it's overlooking is New Jersey, the Palisades and the bridge. So that exists and is available to people unless they are in a wheelchair. So making that ADA compliant, that speaks to that. And the other one is the Linden Terrace in Fort Tryon Park. The Linden Terrace has spectacular views of the river. So that speaks to that use that you noted.
And Inspiration Point.
And Inspiration Point as well. So those three items do speak to that usage. In terms of bathrooms, we have in other years had projects for bathrooms, and they were not ranked, so they sort of fell off the list because for whatever reason they weren't ranked highly. Now I will say that there have been a couple of projects which are in construction which have added bathrooms, or which have recently been completed which have added bathrooms. So the Audubon Playground has added bathrooms. The Inwood Hill Park Nature Center, those bathrooms have been repaired and are now open. The Monsignor Kett Playground has bathrooms. The Ann Loftus Playground has bathrooms. I think
two more. Quisqueya Playground, we have a $7 renovation at Highbridge, and then we're adding a new bathroom at the south end of Highbridge at 165th, part of the project.
Part of the Adventure Playground. And then the Quisqueya Playground, which is also in Highbridge Park, that's got bathrooms. And that's one of those projects that when Jennifer gave her capital update that she mentioned is, sort of stuck in the works of the comptroller's office, but it's, all of these things take years longer than we would like, but that is in the works. So it's not that bathrooms aren't important, it's that over the years, because bathrooms are so important, we've actually done a lot with bathrooms. That said,
Because the Jacob Javits Park Playground is newly constructed. And there's
that
not
is
a single
correct.
bathroom in sight.
That is correct. And the reason why there is no bathroom there is because there wasn't enough funding. However, one of the things that we fought for and got in the design for the Javits Playground is an available footprint, which was quite purposefully not developed, so that if money came available, there would be we know exactly where a bathroom is going to go if we can ever get the 1.75, I think, $million, something, 3 million. The cost has really gone up. So if we can get the $3 million needed to build a bathroom, we know exactly where we're going to put it, because we left a sort of placeholder for it to go in that southeast corner. But so, yeah, I mean, that's something that we've talked about a lot. So it would be new in as much as it wasn't on the list last year, but conceptually it's not new at all. And I can totally add it. Show of hands, are we good with adding that?
I would like to know what other what other parks don't have bathrooms as well, and perhaps we could group those all together.
Well, also, Liz mentioned at the end of Dykeman Street, at the entrance to Dykeman Fields, there are the bathrooms.
Yes, those bathrooms were also added, and the Payson Playground, Playhouse, a park house, has
Yes.
bathrooms. So when that building is open, those bathrooms are available. But part of what we would get if that building were renovated is better and accessible bathrooms. So I would say the areas that do not have bathrooms that need them would be, Javits doesn't have a bathroom. Bennett Park has a bathroom. In Fort Washington Park, there is one bathroom in like the 150, what's like 158th, 159th-ish, 160, something like that. There's a bathroom there, but at the Adventure Playground further north, we had wanted to add a bathroom, and like with Javits Playground, there wasn't enough money. So I would say those are the two where there's just nothing. Am I missing anything?
No.
You're on mute,
Liz,
Jennifer.
with the
Hold on,
suggestion-
Barbara, hold on. We got Jennifer, she's on mute.
Okay.
Jennifer, you're still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I would say the north end of Dykeman Fields ultimately would need some kind of restroom. It's an 18-block area.
Yes.
So something there would be helpful. And then at the Fort George Playground area near the mountain biking course, at
Okay.
another a restroom would be helpful there. And then in the when Sherman Creek gets built out, having a restroom in that area, because it's 201st Street to 208th Street.
So although that's important, I'm not sure that I would prioritize that right now, because that's still so fluid, no pun intended.
What about
Liz.
Wait, hold
Liz-
on a second. We got Danielle and then Daryl.
What about the path that we were discussing before to potentially add barbecuing areas like near the boathouse and the Sherman Creek?
Okay, so that comes under, that's already included in adding barbecuing areas.
No, I'm talking about the bathroom in that area.
So there's a bathroom right now at 10th
Liz,
Avenue.
please don't change the document. Can you wait for a minute?
First Street. And then at 204th and 10th Avenue, Monsignor Kett, we're expanding the bathrooms. But a little further to the north, around 208th, we'll probably want something as well.
Oh, but I was thinking that pathway that's like right along, like the bike path where people.
Talking about by the Little Red Lighthouse?
No, I'm talking about by the Harlem River Drive, like along the highway.
Oh, yeah, along the highway, building a bathroom is not going to be feasible because you can't connect to the water service.
Can I add a porta potty?
You could add a porta potty
That's not capitally eligible.
Not. Usually porta potties we allow when there's a permit holder that's responsible for them. Otherwise, unfortunately, they do get vandalized and.
Okay. Okay, Daryl?
Yeah, it looks like you're about to add things in 8 through 11 there.
Yes.
Can you add that at the end? Make it 19, 20, 21, and 22?
So let me just be clear about what the numbers 1 through 22 are. They're just numbers identifying the line. They're not.
I understand that, but some of us may have already gone through the list and put their rankings. So if you could add it at the end, that would be
I'm not
helpful.
gonna add,
Because I don't see why you would add it in the middle anyway, but.
Can we just send it tonight, Daryl? Would you be able
Yeah.
to just like so that she could just
But
add it?
there's no reason to add it in the middle. We have new things at the bottom anyway, so.
okay, so let me just explain to you what I was doing. I was adding it to the end of the not numbered things. So I left the items, I have all of the new items at the top and all of the items that.
They're not. You could see there are others in the middle and at the bottom that are also new.
Even so, this list doesn't necessarily make any difference because the Google Sheet, I just put it in the original list. And I'm just going to add things to the bottom of this Google Sheet that people are just going to rank from the start anyway. So
Okay.
it doesn't even matter.
Just adding it to the bottom, it would just make more sense.
Liz, are number 12 and 15 and 16 and 22 new?
Okay, okay. Here, let me make it easy for you.
I think the question is,
Okay, so these numbers that I had there were just the last numbers. They were not meaningful to the items at all. So since they were confusing to people, I've just removed them. So what I have here is these items.
They were meaningful, Liz. They were meaningful to some people because some people already use that for ranking.
Okay, please don't. So
No, I mean, you asked how to do it and then you started doing it one way. Don't go back and change the system. Just can you go back and do the way you did and add the new ones at the end? I don't see why that's difficult.
okay.
And I
So
don't mean to be difficult, but I'm just
Okay,
saying it doesn't make any sense to me.
I totally understand and sympathize that it does not make sense to you, and I respect that. I am trying to explain what it is that I did in the hopes that it might make sense not only to you, but to the other people who may also not understand what it is that I've done. At the bottom of the list are the items that are continuing support.
Liz?
I give up.
Hi.
And those will
And
not
when
show
I say
up.
the bottom, I meant above continuing support.
I think, Daryl, could you just let her do it in the way that she's doing it and then we could just figure it out after the call because it's getting late and.
Well, I don't.
And to be quite
I think-
honest, it's going to look differently on the form you're going to use to do
So we all have
this.
to start over again, basically, is what you're saying.
Not necessarily, Daryl.
Not really.
In the form you're going to use to do this, it was in the original order of the spreadsheet. And anything new, I've been adding to the columns that you're going to be ranking on the Google spreadsheet. So if you have your own list going, awesome. It'll be easier for you to fill out the spreadsheet. For folks that just want to get to the sheet, you're going to have a clean slate, just to rank however you want to do it. And again, it'll automatically aggregate everyone's choices to then be able to give Liz the final.
These items here are the items that were ranked last year. And then at the top is where I was adding all of the new items
Right.
in no particular order. So because there were additional new items that had not been added yet, I added them to the bottom of the new items. I'm sorry if you had already started ranking things, but we weren't actually done yet.
Just
So-
do it. We don't need to talk about it. It's fine.
And Liz, on the Google form. So by the way, folks, I just changed my name to the URL of the form, so you can access it now. I'll keep adding things as we talk about them, but you can see what you're going to be getting into.
Liz?
Ask a question.
Yeah,
This is Aisha. So
Yeah.
I just started a new role, which operates mostly on Los Angeles and Singapore time, which they just now open up. I need to jump off the call, so I'm pretty familiar with the budget process. I'm just curious as to how I know I see that Noble has given a link, but when are the rankings due from each member?
I'm sorry, say that again. When each rank, well,
When will the members be doing the rankings? Are we doing it tonight?
Usually we would do them tonight, but since it's already 20 after 9, I'm a little concerned that that ship has sailed. So what I'm gonna do is get this sheet all done, get it out to you, and then if you can get it back to me in the next couple of days, because we are going to be doing our board-wide ranking on the 21st, and I need to get everything to the office so that they can prepare that or document. I do also want to say that in addition to this, we also have the expense list, which is much shorter and much less complicated, but we do have to get to that as well. And we have one more agenda item. So we're talking about—
Why don't we say this should, why don't we say this should be gotten to Liz by Thursday at noon? I think Thursday at noon is reasonable.
Does that work for
I
people?
mean, really, a noon deadline Thursday.
Yes.
No stragglers.
Earlier would also be appreciated, but Thursday at noon works for me. I just want to have some clarity about adding, so we're adding ADA
I would
compliant.
like to suggest Friday morning.
No.
That's for Liz.
So it will shock everyone to know that I have other things that I do with my life, and I do not actually want to spend my weekend doing this.
Liz, can we just add the rest of the items?
I'm trying hard to do that. So hold on a second, Sally. Everybody stop, please. Thank you. So we're talking about adding ADA compliant bathroom in Javits Playground.
Dykeman Fields.
Dykeman Ball Field.
Northern. No, well, no, it's Northern Dykeman Fields.
Well, the Dykeman Ball Fields, that's what they're called. Not the baseball fields in Inwood Hill Park, but the Dykeman Ball Fields. ADA compliant bathroom in Fort Washington Park by the Adventure Playground.
And just to be clear, in parks parlance, we're talking about comfort stations, correct?
Yes.
Should I be calling it a comfort station or a bathroom?
Well, as long as Parks knows what we want, that's fine.
Yeah, I would
As
rather
long as
call
everyone
it.
understands.
Yeah, I mean, your point is extremely well taken. I think Parks is more likely to know that we mean comfort station when we say bathroom than the public is likely to know that we mean bathroom when we say comfort station.
Agreed.
And then the last one was, help me out. What was the fourth one? It was Javits, Dykeman Ball Fields, Fort Washington Playground. There were 4.
Was it Bennett?
Part of High Bridge.
Washington?
High Bridge.
Oh, High Bridge over by the skate park.
Yes.
Jennifer, are you aware, do all of these parks have the infrastructure or the space to be able to build a bathroom?
No.
All of the parks where we previously.
These 4 that we've identified as wanting to build bathrooms, did they all have space? Could the space be found?
I guess it depends on what is underneath.
Noble?
Is Jennifer, is a mobile bathroom a possibility?
What?
Yes, we explored bathroom trailers in certain locations. The question becomes, what is capitally eligible? Right now we have bathroom trailers at Sherman Creek on 10th Avenue and 201st Street as part of the project that Department of Design and Construction did for a New York restoration project. Those are like prefab buildings with bathroom trailers built in. So you can do that. You can do a recyclable toilet. Clevis mulchums have been piloted in certain places. So Parks has designed a prototype. Actually, this committee helped create a new prototype, actually, with the Parks Department for female, male, and non-sexed bathroom at Monsignor Ket.
Mhm. Okay. So you got, you're muted, Nobles.
No, I'm just counting to myself to make sure
Oh.
the columns line up.
Got it. Okay, so you got all this? Can I switch to expense?
You can switch to expense. I'm pretty sure I have it, but I would just send this to me just in case once we're done
Yes.
with expense.
I will.
Thanks.
Just for everyone to be aware, what I thought was an O is a 0 in Noble's link, and it's case sensitive.
I see. So it's https://bit.ly/2. Is that an L or a 1?
Can Paula just
I
send?
think that's an I, Liz.
Is that an uppercase I? Or
Yeah, no, it's Bitly, so it's an LY. So BIT.
Okay,
Oh
right.
shit, my computer.
I think it means after the number 2, 2I.
Oh, he just disappeared. His battery just,
Let me see if I saved it.
okay, so he's gonna come back in. All right. So on expenses, we've got,
Liz, Paola put the link on the chat. So if anybody needs it, the same thing that Nobles had on his name, it's actually on the chat.
fantastic.
I'm sorry, where is it exactly? I don't see.
If you look at where it says, go all the way to the bottom at 9 p.m., anonymous attendee, it says these issues are also big issues in Hybrid South. And then you'll see that Paola replied at 9:05. She put a link. It has a Google Docs link. Click on that.
Weirdly, I don't see that.
I don't see it either.
If you go in the Q&A box, there's open, there's answered, and there's dismissed. Go to the answered, the middle one, and then scroll all the way down.
I see. It's in dismissed.
So it's in dismissed?
Well, I'm seeing it in the answered section. If you
At
go,
what time?
It's in answered.
9 p.m.
Can I ask one question too?
I don't see it.
Ah, I see it. It's under
Oh, got it. It's-
anonymous
yeah.
attendees.
Yeah,
But we-
under anonymous attendees, 9 o'clock. These issues are also big issues. And then there's an answer by Paola.
Yes, I'm not able to type it anywhere else, so if someone can copy and paste it and then add, throw it in the Q&A, because I don't have that ability. I was only able to answer.
It doesn't
If
allow
someone
me,
listening could put a new question, you could answer that too.
Correct.
right, it does not allow me to cut and paste.
So
So,
Liz, it is bit.ly
uh-huh,
2 capital I, lowercase n, lowercase j, 0, capital I, X.
so are you sure that's a capital I and not a lowercase L?
Yes.
Yeah, if we're still talking about the link, I emailed it to you, Liz.
Okay, great. All right, so I'd really like to move on to,
No, but can I ask you a quick process question?
sure.
My computer also cut out, but not for battery. I don't know why I got knocked off the Zoom. Is there a way that you could copy that someone who didn't get kicked off, because you won't be able to do it
I
either?
sent the URL to Steve Simon. Since he is not a panelist, he should be able to put it in the question and answer.
No,
I'm
my
not sure if he's
question
still
was,
on.
could someone copy into a document the complete chat, the complete Q&A history? Because I'd like to look through it.
Paola, can you do that?
I think that's usually included in the minutes. Is it?
No, it's not. You have to
Oh,
you have to
we
do
include
it
them in.
before it ends.
And
So,
it has to be someone who didn't get kicked off the call, so I can't do it and Nobles can't do it.
Does she want the transcript?
okay, I'll do that before the call ends. I'd really like to, in order to achieve that goal, I'd really like to move the agenda. I'm begging you. We've been at this for 3 hours.
I
I'm
just have
trying to-
one more important process question.
Sure.
this link that we all have is now in the public. Are we ensuring that only the board members are voting on this?
We're
And
gonna
how-
know who's responded, and I'm going to accept answers from people who are members of this committee. People who are not members of this committee are welcome to spend their time answering it, but I will ignore that feedback. So just so everybody knows,
I'll add a mandatory field here to put your name into it.
yes.
But I don't have the link, so I'm just assuming someone's gonna.
Okay, it will be sent to you when this meeting is over, if you haven't already gotten it.
I don't need the tone anymore, Liz, okay? I'm just saying, we can send everything out and it solves both problems.
Indeed it does. So moving on to the expense. We have 6 expense items from last year that are holdovers. Fund additional parks enforcement personnel, pretty self-explanatory. Dedicated forest crew for District 12, 4 people to help with sustained invasives, removal of native plantings in inwood and hybrid forests, which sounds like a fluffy extra, but when we talk about things like security, it often comes down to visibility and having clear sight lines. So, and also not getting killed by falling branches when dead trees fall over. So that's more important than it may sound like at first blush, which is why it's still in there. Although, if it's not important to you, feel free to rank it last. These are individual choices. Increased DCLA, that's the Department of Community Affairs, of Cultural Affairs, funding by at least $500,000 to increase support for arts programming and individual artists within Community District 12. That's not specified, it's just more funding for the arts. Next, increase funding by at least $500,000 for various programming throughout Community District 12 parks, playgrounds, courts, and historic houses. Fund additional playground associates and parks and urban park ranger staff, as well as contracted specialists for after-school, recreational, waterfront, and cultural programming for kids, teens, adults, seniors, and the formerly incarcerated. So again, that's a catch-all for, we need more money for programming. And rather than having, you know, after school, seniors, this, that, the other thing, just put it all together as we need more funding. Danielle, I don't know if you could hear, but while you were away from your screen, the item for increasing funding for parks programming includes for programming for kids, teens, adults, seniors, and the formerly incarcerated. So it's, it's not a specific program, it's just generally increasing funding for parks-based programming on the thinking that we're more likely to get approval if we don't try to micromanage each individual programming and just say, we need more money for programming.
About the numbers.
Can we say institutionalized instead of incarcerated?
No, I would like to keep formally, well, sorry, my opinion is to keep formally incarcerated.
Okay, and I would say my opinion is institutionalized because there are people who have been in mental hospitals, et cetera, and they should be included.
Can they be separate? Can we add them
Okay,
separate?
sure.
'Cause I think like, I totally hear you on the institutionalization
How
thing.
about incarcerated or institutionalized? Because
Perfect.
they're 2 different things and they're
Yep.
both really important.
Definitely, I 100%
Okay.
agree. I have a question about number 7 though.
Let me finish. So it's not there is no number 7. There's there.
You know where my question is about. It's the number 7 that you have, line 7.
Okay, so let me get through this, please.
Quick question, Liz. Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
if
no.
we are not
No,
micromanaging it in the budget, how are we giving input about where the funding for programming goes on the back end? Just curiosity.
I'm sorry. Can I please get through this? And then people can ask questions about any or all of the items, please? Please? Thank you. Last item, maintain funding to continue to provide 6 days of service at all libraries. I'm actually going to take this out because my understanding is last year, for whatever reason, Youth and Education did not prioritize libraries. We did. But based on my understanding of what Youth and Education was talking about at its prioritization, they are, libraries comes under that committee, not this committee. So I don't think it's helpful for us to be prioritizing other committees' priorities. Make sense? So I'm deleting this.
Which is that one? I'm sorry. I missed
The
that.
library one. It's not our committee. It's not that it's not important. It's hugely important. It's just not our committee.
Okay.
Well, then the renovation of the Fort Washington Library shouldn't be in our capital budget.
Yes, because it's a building, no?
No, because it's.
I don't think it is. Oh, it's in there under continuing support, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Can I ask my question now about line 7?
No. So based on the discussions that we had had at previous meetings and at our last meeting, the new expense items that had not been prioritized last year were outdoor learning initiatives in parks, community gardens, and other green spaces. This is a library one. Add recycling collections in parks, and then the item related to the Native American, African American burial grounds, which we've moved out of capital and into expense. So that's a total of 8 items. Danielle, you had a question about parks enforcement personnel, PEP officers?
Well, first, line 4, it was my understanding that it was going to be recycling and also trash receptacles, which is related to my question about line, what is now 6. I move that we modify that and advocate for additional personnel to collect trash and not advocate for additional PEP.
Okay, so add recycling collection and more trash receptacles in parks. That makes total sense. I totally respect that you do not see value in adding parks enforcement, but and you are welcome to rank that 8 out of 8 items. But I think that there are other people on the committee who feel differently and who think that it's perhaps appropriate to have more parks enforcement personnel. So I wouldn't recommend removing that. But I certainly welcome you to rank it last if that's unimportant to you. As far as adding trash collection, there is an item here that covers that.
Oh, line 10?
Yeah, so that is fund additional staff for sanitation, maintenance and operations and horticulture. So there are all sorts of things. So maintenance and operations and trash collection is a huge issue, as we all know, and having more people to do that, tremendously important. But again, having a separate line, we need more maintenance and operation, we need more plumbers, we need more gardeners.
I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. It's a lot, and it's pretty small. I'm sorry, I made the other one bigger. I didn't make this one bigger. So these are the now 8 items. Do you have all of these, Nobles? Are you back? I see you, Sally. I'll get to you in a second.
Unfortunately, I'm back. Well, fortunately, I'm back, but unfortunately, I lost everything. So if you could just like send me the sheet, I can easily whip this up in 10 minutes and just resend out the link. So everyone just disregard the link that you had before. I have to remake this. But at least I know that I'll just send it out to the members of the committee.
Okay.
That's it.
Great.
Thank
And
you.
Sally, thank you so much. And I share your pain. Sally, you had a question.
Yeah, a couple. On number, I guess it's now line 4, when we had the discussion about the recycling and the more trash receptacles, I recall that we also had a discussion about sustainability initiatives and healthy initiatives, like the sustainability would be the refillable fountains that refilled bottles, like they have in most universities and places now. And we'll have one, I guess, in Inwood Hill Park. Things like touchless surfaces. because
Sure.
of The pandemic, and I wonder where some of that goes.
So that's capital. The great suggestion, but that's capital. And because it's, you're talking about plumbing, that's something that would typically attach to bathrooms. So I would, that would be a capital item. And that's something that we would add in during design. So again, even though it's tremendously important, that's something that we would talk about when we get around to design. That's not something that we would do as a different project.
Okay, and then on line 6, find additional parks enforcement personnel. I know that's tremendously important. I think that the urban park rangers are also important, and though I see them down in the increased funding for programming, et cetera, I think they get lost in that. I would rather find additional parks enforcement personnel and urban park rangers, because both of them have the same capabilities in terms of being ambassadors and that kind of stuff. So is there a way that we could put urban park
Sure.
also up there?
I would not be opposed to having them in both places. That certainly makes sense because they have a peace officer function. They also have a programming function. I also want to circle back to something that you asked me about and that I didn't get to in terms of what the OMB response was to our items. So what their response was typically is they don't usually
council member.
Right. They don't usually, they don't make value judgments on our requests. Like when we ask for something, they don't say, well, that's a stupid idea, we're not doing this. Their response to almost everything that we asked for capitally is there's no funding in the capital budget, ask your council member. And the reason why they said that is that's how the Parks Department's budget works. So, but how the council member, because they don't have their own capital budget, how the council member knows that the community thinks that this project is more important than that project is how we ranked it. So while it's true, I see your hand, while it's true that it's a little frustrating to go through a ranking exercise and then have OMB say, ask your council member, the council member can, in theory, take his or her cues from this document to know what not the committee's priorities were, but what the board's priorities were.
Right.
So, and that really goes for both in terms of expense and capital. So I get that that's not satisfying. I want to just, before I
add one other thought, and y'all can dismiss it out of hand. There was a study done by all the conservancies about what the budget cuts not only meant to the Parks Department, but also meant to a lot of the conservancies, what it meant to friends groups, etc. And this sort of came to my mind when I was thinking about what Domingo was advocating for. Do we want to ask for more funding for things like partnerships for parks, for the NYC Green Relief Fund and that kind of stuff to support non-city groups that are trying to supplement the work of the parks? And that money generally flows through City Parks Foundation Partnerships for Parks.
Sure. People good with that?
Yeah.
Thumbs up. All right.
Thank you, Liz.
Putting it here at the bottom of the new items.
Yes.
Yeah, Danielle?
I'm not sure if this is capital or expense, but I remember a while back us discussing, I don't remember what the context was, or if it was even the Parks Committee, but I remember there being a discussion about adding not a ferry to one of the docks in our area, and it like goes around the top of the island to Queens or to something. I'm just wondering, I don't remember exactly again the context, but is that something that we could add into?
Yeah, so that's actually, although it docks in parks, it's actually a traffic, I'm gonna mute you because there's a lot of crinkling of plastic going on there. That's actually a traffic and transportation thing, even though it's not roads, it's the waterways, and even though it docks in parks, because adding ferry lines, we already have the infrastructure, the docking infrastructure at the Dyckman Piers, at the Harlem Piers.
Yeah.
So it's not a capital project. And so it becomes a transportation project, not a parks project. Actually, I want to just take a quick lap through the remaining attendees. I see that we still have Alexander Campos and Tiffany Braby with their hands up. So are you, Alexander, was there something you wanted to add?
No, I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you're in the flow. I was just curious. I mean, who was the community on the committee? Who are the members of the committee who can vote on this?
The members of the committee are myself, the assistant chair, Daryl Cochrane. The members are Barbara Frazier, Danielle Jetu, Francisco Lopez, Nobles Crawford, Etta Santiago, Aisha Ogilvy, Sally Fisher, and then our public members, Naima Silver, who is here, and Alexis Marnell, who is not.
Okay, so those are the only people voting on this. So really,
Correct.
There's no need for us who are like the Shiloh's on the phone too. So there's no like, we're like done, right? There's nothing we could do to advocate or anything at this point.
You know, I mean, I think that I think we've heard a lot of what you've said, not only today, but over time in meetings past. I would encourage you to come to the budget meeting where the full board is going to be voting on the priorities, because, you know, we have the advantage of month in and month out hearing from all of the Friends of Parks groups, you know, the volunteers for this or that park, the folks who come from the various cultural institutions and talk about all the good work that you all are doing. And you know, we try to convey that in our minutes and in our presentations, but I think it is helpful during the public testimony for the board to hear from different organizations and individuals about what are the things that are important to people. So I would
And just to go with Sally's point is that the mayor's office deleted all capital funding for non-CIGs for the most part in the cultural arena. So if you weren't already a CIG, it was very difficult to get money from the executive budget unless your city councilman, unless your council member gave money or the borough president. But the executive budget, which DCLA budget itself from the mayor's office, was frozen for culture and new projects. So I want to thank the borough president. We got something from the borough president, but our request to the city overall was not met at all. Not even you know, $100,000.
Has it been? I'm sorry. Has it been decided how the final budget ranking is going to be happening with the full board? Is it going to be part of the general, a separate meeting?
Oh, it's going to be a separate meeting. It's going to, I just said, I announced it's going to be on Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday, the 21st, because we have our executive on Monday, the 19th. So I'm going.
Come off now. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Can I stop screen sharing? Okay.
Alexander, you make a very good point. The same thing that happened to all the parks groups and the conservancies, et cetera, happened to all you guys. It happened to Morris Small. It happened to you guys. And so the question is there something similar to what I proposed for the funding for partnerships for parks that could subsidize what y'all lost? I mean, it's like not being able to have fundraisers, not being able to have people pay admission, you know, and all that kind of stuff that's not being replaced. So, and I don't know if we can do sort of a mirror kind of line item.
Liz, I raised this before last year about the parks and women and safety. Is there anything being done in this budget that we can add to somehow? We got women running and bikes. How do we protect women when they're by themselves in the parks? Like, how can they get help if they feel like they're being targeted or they're being harassed in any way?
So I think there are a couple of things that speak to that. The renovation of the building in Fort Tryon Park, which would move parks enforcement more to the middle of the district for better deployment and better coverage. Some of the forestry issues helps with visibility. Some of the path paving helps again with, you know, not having tripping hazards. I'm not sure if you're talking about like solar paneled help call phones, or if you're talking about lighting, or if you're talking about cameras.
Something where they can grab and just get 911 or have someone come, like, you know, something like in the college campuses, they always have these like telephone pole looking things.
Right. I hear you. So at 10 minutes to 10 is not really the time when I want to start having a conversation about a totally new thing. I will say that one of the things about all of those kinds of infrastructure improvements, anything where you have a camera or where you have a phone, its effectiveness assumes that there is somebody who is watching that tape, that film, those collected images, or someone answering that phone. And that is essentially a police department purview, not a parks department purview. So that really has to go through the public safety committee. So even though it's about public safety in parks, it would be the cops who are on the other end of that phone. So if you go out to the Dyckman Field, there's an emergency call box. That's not an emergency call box to the Parks Department. That's an emergency call box to the 911 system. And even though it's in a park, it's a public safety thing. So I certainly do communicate with Curtis and with public safety chairs before him that there's a call for call boxes, there's a call for cameras in certain places, but unless there is the related staff to handle those incoming messages or images, it's not a meaningful piece of infrastructure, and that's the purview of the police department, not the Parks Department.
We definitely talked, Liz, I'll just mention, we definitely have talked about that. I can't remember though exactly if we added that into our budget items, but we have this stuff for sure.
Cool.
I think Jennifer had something to say about it.
Yeah.
So your hand was up.
Do you have something to add or, okay. So with that, I would.
Liz, I just wanted to make a brief comment which reflects on the security NYPD. I just received an announcement that Chief of Patrol Fausto Pichardo has resigned effectively immediately over disagreements with Mayor de Blasio. If people don't know, he's the highest ranking Dominican police officer in New York City. Dominican. He's the former head of the 33rd precinct and is, greatly looked up to by the 33rd.
No, this is.
And made major, and he has put in his papers over disagreements with de Blasio. Gone. Yeah. And that will affect, he's basically in charge of all uniformed officers in New York City. That's going to have quite a ripple in terms of morale and attitude of especially our Hispanic officers and officers of color down the line.
I don't usually make a lot of predictions, but I always figured he was gonna become PC.
That's what I thought too. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yep.
I'm thinking that he may be back. When
No,
there's a new mayor.
he put in his retirement papers. You don't come back. He signed his papers.
Weirder things have happened and a girl can hope.
A girl can hope, but
Don't commissioners go in retirement and come out all the time?
Yeah, we had a commissioner retire and come back as commissioner, so.
Right.
Anyway, this
yeah,
is,
that could be.
so,
Yeah, the commissioner's not a uniformed police officer. There's not
Yeah.
a police officer. Yeah,
so
they're
this is terrible news. I'm super bummed. It's 10 minutes to 10 and we
Yeah.
still have one more item that I'm going to get through if it kills me, which it might. That is really bad news. Thank you very much for sharing it, but I can't even tell you how sad I am right now.
Yep.
Okay. I'm looking for the first time in an hour at the chat. Somebody had a question about the ADA structure at the Jamel Mansion. They had asked a question about it and it was marked as dismissed. I don't recall a question having been asked about it. I don't recall having dismissed it. I'm not sure what the question was. ADA structure at the Jamel Mansion. Okay, I have no idea what that question is and I don't know who it's from. All right, I don't know who anonymous attendee is, but we've got lots of oh my goodness. Okay. I'm not sure who anonymous attendee is, but we've got lots of very snarky comments. So I welcome you to read them. So the last item that we have is based on something that was raised in the executive committee based on something that the fire department did. There was an award for bravery given by the fire department in the name of James Gordon Bennett, who I guess he had, his house was on fire and the fire department came and they saved it and him. And so he donated money and endowed some kind of scholarship or award or something, and it was named after him. And recently his history as, you know, a total racist in the way he covered, ran his newspaper. I mean, I knew him as a you know, great figure of journalism and the founder of the Post back when it was a decent paper. And I didn't realize that there was a whole other side of James Gordon Bennett that turns out is pretty awful. So the fire department decided that they didn't need to have an award named after him, that awards or I don't know, remember if it's an award or a scholarship, but that they should be, if it's coming from the fire department, it should be named after someone within the fire department, not a benefactor from more than a century ago. And so they renamed it after, I forget the name of the chief who died on September 11th and was the highest ranking member of the FDNY to die on that day. So this got a lot of people thinking about, we have Bennett Park. Does it really need to be called that? Do we want to call it something else? And this ties into a larger conversation that has been happening in this committee for more than a decade about, why is Fort Tryon Park called Fort Tryon Park? And that has been happening around the country in a really big way, particularly in the last 6 months, over, who gets a statue erected to him or her, usually him. How do we honor people? What do we do about honoring people who are our heroes when we find out that there is much that is really not worthy of honor and arguably shameful? So there's a whole conversation about that. And it's a conversation that's important and that I would really, really like to have, but it occurs to me that at 1 minute to 10, starting that off, I didn't think this meeting was going to go so long. As Jennifer had mentioned earlier, at the beginning of this meeting, the Parks Department is looking at names of various parks throughout the city and possibilities of changing some of those names. They are going to be making an announcement on November 2nd. I'm not really sure at this point, given the hour, how to handle that. I'm open.
Can we just put this as old business for November?
Absolutely.
Motion to table.
We don't need a motion to table. We can just, we can just,
Can I ask a question? I'm like,
absolutely.
does our opinion on this matter? I mean, Parks is going, it's happening, right?
So I would say if there are people who have particular feedback about this, I think it would be helpful to be able to, for Jennifer to hear that and take it back, or for me to be able to collect that and send it to the Parks Department. I was hoping that this was going to be an hour and a half ago and that we would be able to kind of go around the Zoom and get people's input on, what are parks that we maybe would want to see called something else, and who are some of the people that, or what are some of the things that we would rather see our parks be called. So, at this point,
When would you like feedback by? Can we email you?
I would say, I think that thinking about it and getting me feedback sometime this week so that by the end of the week, I can forward that along to the Borough Commissioner's office is probably the best way to handle that. I know that Megan Burns, who is still on this call, had actually asked about that. So I'm just gonna give you the opportunity to throw something in if you've got something you want to say about that, Megan.
Hi. Yes, my main question was about the process of this initiative and whether or not there would be community public forums or hearings so that the local people, living near parks such as, say, Roger Morris Park could weigh in on whether or not they want the name to be changed, and if so, what it should be.
That was originally going to be at this evening's meeting. I think that Francisco's point of adding it to our next meeting so that we can discuss it. My guess, and Jennifer, please let me know if I'm wrong about this or if there's something that I'm missing, but I would assume that whatever is being announced by the Parks Department on November 2nd is going to be a proposal, not a, we are doing this, and that there will be some mechanism for public feedback, I would hope. Yeah.
I can find out what the process is and report back. I don't know how it's, I know how it's being vetted, how it's being assessed. I haven't been involved in the process, but I can find out.
That would be great.
Okay,
Thank you.
if you could let me know. Can someone please let me know who is responding to the questions in the chat? Because there's somebody who's been asking a bunch of questions that were ignored and were dismissed without having been answered. And this person, I don't know who it is because it's anonymous attendee, is taking me to task for having not answered their questions. And I keep trying to reopen them so that I can answer them, and they keep getting dismissed. So I don't know who anonymous call attendee is. I don't know why. And I don't know who was, can somebody please tell me who was responding? and
I
dismissing
apologize, Liz.
the
There
chat?
were a bunch of ones clogging it up, and I thought those were already answered. And I know I answered one myself
Got it.
about ADA accessibility there. So
Okay.
maybe they didn't read the answer because there's another thing you have to click to read the answer.
Yeah.
So maybe
Well-
they didn't realize it was answered.
Okay, I don't know who this person is, and I don't really know what to do about that, but yeah, for anybody who's ever,
Liz,
Mhm.
I don't know, and I'm sorry, I apologize. I can't remember if it was this committee or the other committee I serve on that was interacting with this individual. I understand there are issues why they need to remain anonymous for their own safety for something else entirely different, unrelated to this committee. But if they have legitimate questions, that's one thing. But if they're going to be frankly insulting, then that's another story. And we honestly don't need to, because this is a public meeting. Some of those missives do not need to be answered
right.
or addressed.
I agree with Daryl. Liz, I would just say completely just disregard it. It, like you said, it's kind of they're disrespectful. They don't even make sense. The comments don't really make sense.
Yeah, no,
So
there are a
they-
number of comments that totally don't make sense, but there are a couple that actually did make sense, and well, whatever. Okay.
Liz, I have
yes.
an announcement to make.
Yes.
I'll put this on, put this in front so people can see it. Tomorrow, there is a virtual lecture that people can Zoom into called Women and the Revival of the Hudson River. I don't know if people can see that. At 7 p.m.
Okay.
Can people see that? It is sponsored by the Hudson River Maritime Museum.
Yeah, we can't really see it because there's too much glare. So if you could just reply all to whatever email or.
Okay, but anyways, Carol Lee of the Nature Conservancy is giving a lecture on women and the revival of the Hudson River. 2 sentences. The Hudson River has had a remarkable revival in the last 60 years. Join conservation expert Carol Lee of the Nature Conservancy as she discusses the roles that many women have played in this epic story. And then it goes on longer. So I encourage that tomorrow at 7. Just go on Facebook for the Hudson River Maritime Museum. Get signed up.
Cool.
Is it possible to limit other announcements since it's 10:07? Is it possible
Yes.
to limit announcements and people can send an email to the committee and we can follow up via email?
Yes.
I was just going to ask if we had a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Who?
Motion.
It was a little, so I'm gonna go with, since Barbara
Motion to
seconded it
adjourn.
first, she
That's
got
right.
to move it.
Motion to
Daryl gets to
adjourn.
second it. Okey dokey smoky.
The email will be sent to us as a committee tonight, right? So that
Yes.
we can do ranking. All of that will be done tonight.
Yes, I'm gonna send Nobles, as soon as I get off, I'm gonna send this to you because my ability to
And
multitask.
someone's
is
gonna, and someone will save the Q&A.
Um, Yeah, I guess I better do that before
Ending the call.
Ending the call.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too. Paola, don't end the call
Happy
yet.
anniversary, Jennifer.
Just if you
thank
can send all of us the Q&A since it'll be saved anyways.
No, it doesn't get saved. You have to
Oh, okay.
cut and paste it.
Got it, got it.
Okay, I'm gonna go make the rest of my dinner.
I'm gonna eat. All right, I'll see you.
Yeah, I've been trying not to eat my graham crackers in front of the.
Okay.
Should we sign off, Liz? Is this?
Yeah, you can. I mean, I'm gonna stay on and I'm gonna unfortunately make Paola stay on because I need to do the cut and paste, but you do not need to stay on. Thank you very much. I will tell you that these meetings are not usually this long. This was unusual, and that was partly my fault because I did not have the ranking piece as prepared as I would have liked, but it was also really exacerbated by it being very hard to do this in
Zoom is
Zoom.
hard. Zoom is hard.
There are a lot of things that you can really do well in Zoom and that transfer easily and well, but the budget ranking is just not one of them. And
Well, Liz, I do want to say thank you earlier for, taking the time to break down the process. I know that most people already understand it. They've been on the committee longer, but I do appreciate that you took the time to break it down. It actually made sense. I was able to follow along, and I know that I will have questions down the road. So, don't be surprised if I ask,
definitely ask them. And if I'm also, or anybody else is, saying anything that assumes a knowledge of some particular history that you don't have, or that uses jargon or terminology or concepts that are unfamiliar to you because this isn't, your committee or whatever like that, you should absolutely feel free to kind of raise your hand and ask them. And also, or if it's something that you feel like you need more information, but you don't feel like you need it in the moment, you can also hit me up offline and I can give you an explanation in advance or